The young lady realizes that she is being used by her own family and who is now turning to her sister. After which he tells her to wake up, and the girl understands that she is the second daughter of the Hassel family, and her name is Lunacia. The young lady rises from her bed, and her brother, with a bright smile on his face, says that she finally woke up. This guy is the eldest son of the Hassel family named Soleil. The guy then says that he has an important exam today, for the right to become a knight as their father wished, and he is obliged to pass this exam. So the guy now folds his hands and prays to the girl for her to look into the future and find out the answers to the exam for his sake. The girl understands that this is a spoiled older brother who turns to her only when he needs something. And the young lady then asks if her brother understands that this way he will not become a worthy knight because he needs to use his own knowledge. The guy then claims that he knows, and he doesn't need answers to all the questions, but only a couple. The girl then says that she hasn't been feeling very well lately, but at this time someone else bursts into the room, and it turns out to be the young lady's sisters, the eldest daughter of the Hassel family named Rosalind, and the third daughter of the Hassel family named Cynthia. The girls then wish their brother and sister good morning. Well then, the elder sister turns to Luna and asks if she is still lying around. But their dad will be furious when he sees how lazy she is, so the girl claims that she came to wake her up. The main character then says that it is because but the girl immediately interrupts her and tells the young lady not to worry, because it's in the order of things when the older sister covers the punctures of the younger one. The main character then thinks about what the punctures mean and realizes that she has been feeling terrible lately and therefore allowed herself to sleep a little longer. But even such an indulgence is not allowed to her in this family. The lady in the red dress then asks if sister will read her in return, but that is her future. After all, tomorrow she has an important business deal to buy a new mine, and she asks if this mine will pay for itself if she becomes the owner. The blonde then claims that this is all for the sake of their family so the girl can watch. Luna then turns to Rosaline and says that reading the future drains all her strength, so today she wanted to. Well then, she is interrupted again, and the younger sister then claims that it turns out that little sister Luna is sick, and she apparently won't be able to look that far into Rosalind's future. But she only needs to look 3 days ahead, so now the girl asks if her sister can tell. What dresses will the ladies of the court wear at the ball? And the main character then asks why this is, and the girl claims that, of course, to come in a dress that can outshine them all, because there will be many men at this reception, and the young lady asks how else to attract their attention if not in a beautiful dress. Luna then thinks why she should waste her energy on this nonsense. But her brother then says that the baby is of course the cutest of all of them, but let her not be so selfish because he has an exam very soon, and his future as a knight is about to begin. However, the elder sister then enters into the conversation and claims that this is true because he says that there is no need to be selfish and their family business is much more important. He can handle the vice exam himself. After which, she turns to Luna and tells her to look at her future because she needs to know whether the deal will pay off or not. The baby also wants to know her future and asks if she can be the first. And the main character thinks, is it really the same today for her sisters and her brother? It's like angry wild animals have been tormenting her body since the very morning in the hope of snatching the most delicious piece. In every generation of the Hassel family, one child is born capable of seeing the future, and she became that child. Girls just need to put their palms together, and she will be able to see both the earliest future and the most distant years ahead. Many of their people dreamed of obtaining this power, and by the age of 12, its owner will develop a birthmark on his chest, which indicates possession of this powerful gift. To maintain safety, no one outside their family knows about him, and this is their trump card capable of making world history. But even they do not have the right to greatly influence it, and even such a powerful force has its own price. The girl now understands that things are bad and her right eye is completely blind. But she is obliged to read the future at the behest of her family every single day. But in return, her life becomes shorter, and her body literally falls apart. So the girl thinks how tired she is of this. The first and favorite child to join the family was her older sister Rosalind, and then she and the long-awaited son Soleil were born. But at least they were twins. However, the existence of the young lady was quickly forgotten. And 5 years later, her younger sister Cynthia was born, and she was so beautiful that everyone's adoration flowed to her like a river. And the main character was just a shadow against the background of the beloved children in the Hassel family. Well, one day her powers awakened, and from that day on, all family members began to come to her every day in the hope of taking at least a piece of her power for themselves. The girl was happy to see that her family finally fell in love with her, and they turned their attention and love to her, so she was ready to fulfill all their whims. But as most often happens, the more you feed a wild wolf, the more his appetite develops. Therefore now the young lady realizes in shock that so far she has only become blind by 1 grade, but if this continues, her power will destroy her, so she urgently needs to escape from this house. At this time, one of the maids asks whether the rumors have really spread, and the Marquis is really looking for a bride. Another maid claims that he is a war hero and such a wonderful young man and will finally settle down. The girls also say that the lady he chooses will be lucky. Another girl claims that this is true, and she will live in luxury in a large mansion without knowing any worries. But then another maid asks if she doesn't know that this man will not hesitate to put her into eternal sleep for any offense. But the main character then thinks what kind of luck this is, and understands that she must send a letter to Marquis Iltern. The guy is in his mansion at this time and tells Urin to knock before entering there because he warned him. The guy with blue hair then says that more importantly, he received another letter from a lady wanting to become his wife. After which he tells Mr. Knox, who is the head of the Iltern family, that this time it is the daughter of Viscount Hassel, and he asks what the answer will be. And Knox then tells the guy to answer her like everyone else, that is, politely refuse. Well, the young man with blue hair then asks if the gentleman is saying that he doesn't need a bride, but still asks how long this ridiculous performance will last. And after all, his best friend, His Highness the Crown Prince, should very soon look for his chosen one. And in order to cover for him, the master decided to take the blow on himself by spreading rumors that he needed a bride. Therefore, the guy is now asking if he really should get married and not fool young ladies. But the brunette then only asks if Urin could have said anything smarter. The guy then collects the papers that his master had just thrown and asks if he thinks this letter is somehow strange. The guy is then a little surprised and asks what strange means. And the servant claims that he wrote as if it were not Viscount Hassel, and the handwriting is too soft, as if it belonged to a young lady, and especially since the letter was sent without a wax seal, so it was lucky that he did not throw it away. But the brunette then, a little surprised, asks if the servant wants to say that the daughter of the Hassel family herself wants to become his bride. The young man with blue hair claims that judging by the letter, the lady was completely desperate to take such a step. He wrote the letter personally, and it seems that she is really interested in him. Knox thinks a little after this, and after that he gets up from the table and tells the guy not to answer, and he replies how unusual this is. Then he asks if the gentleman wants to meet her in person, and the man tells him to laugh as much as he wants. But he says that it looks like this lady can relieve his boredom. At this time, the main character gets dressed and realizes that in the end, she sent a letter to the Marquis, and she wonders what kind of answer she will receive. The young lady understands that this guy is a war hero named the Moon Eater for his military merits. But despite his great fame and the love of the people with the money received from his service, he built a mansion deep in the forest far from civilization. The title of war hero did not save him from the spread of various terrible rumors, and those who dared to behave impolitely in his presence, and the guy left them in the thicket of the forest to be torn to pieces by hungry wolves. They say that people could lose their arms and legs, and in the worst case fall into eternal sleep. In addition, rumors spread that the Marquis was looking for a bride, and this began 3 months ago. The nobles who immediately heard the rumors began sending letters to the Marquis, with recommendations pay attention to their daughters, but he didn't like anyone, but the girl understands that no matter what he should like her. Otherwise, she won't last long in this family, and now the maid turns to Mrs. Luna. Then he asks if something is bothering her. The girl then releases her gaze and says that no and everything is fine, and the woman claims that she heard her groom is coming to her today, and he wants to discuss the details regarding their union. The main character understands that besides her family, there is another problem, and these are memoirs inherited from her ancestors. Anyone with the gift of divination in their lineage must continue to keep records, but as a child, Soleil accidentally dropped this book into a pond. Unknowingly, her girlfriend thoughtlessly used her powers, not caring about the consequences, and after a while she was still able to restore the part damaged by water from the pages. It turned out that the maximum that the owner of the gift can afford is to use the ability once a day, And if this is strained, then ultimately the person can lose all 5 senses. This has already begun for the young lady because she gradually began to lose her sight, and her right eye can no longer see anything. So if everything continues like this, her life will be in danger. A couple of days ago, a girl sat on the floor in shock and thought that this must be part of the healthy lifestyle. The young lady, breathing heavily, wondered if she really risked losing all her senses. But she thought that her health had begun to deteriorate over the years. But was it really all because of her ability? Because in the end, she could go completely blind. When the young lady looked at herself in the mirror, she realized that she had never done this before. But then she puts her hand against the mirror and asks what awaits her in her own future. After which the mirror began to glow, and the young lady then wondered why it was dark there. The girl understood that she didn't see, hear, or feel anything, as if she was in an absolute vacuum. And now she understands what it's like to feel nothing at all, and then wonder whether she will become the same. And is this really her future? The girl was terribly scared by this. And now she understands that she also said in her memoirs that if a person has already begun to lose one of his senses, then no matter how often he uses his ability, he will lose all 5 within a year. The girl then understands that since she cannot change her future in any way and will be forced to live her life only as a beautiful doll on a shelf, then at least this time she has the right to live this year the way she wants. And in the end, plunge into eternal sleep without any regrets. That is why the girl understands that she wants to leave this house as soon as possible. But suddenly someone scares the girl. And when the young lady turns around, she asks if it's Rondell. He is the boyfriend of the Alaudi family and the Imperial Knight of the 2nd Division. Now he asks if the young lady was scared. And the girl then claims that it's possible to plunge into shock into the eternal machine, and therefore she asks him not to do that again. After this, the guy just sighs and claims that it's just a joke and then asks if she was offended. But he was finally able to see his future bride, but she seems completely out of sorts. And the guy then sighs and says that Soleil and Cynthia were glad to see him. Luna already understands that when they first met, she was happy because the guy was such a kind and understanding guy. And the young lady thought that they would communicate on equal terms as friends, and that no one would demand anything from her anymore. But everything was a little different. The main character now apologizes for his rudeness, but claims that she has been unwell lately and then asks if she can ask him for a favor. The guy then asks which one, but then he asks if it really can't wait and asks her to better read his future, and again in 3 days there will be an important campaign and he needs to know what to be prepared for. After this, the young lady realizes that, as expected, he also does not care at all about her poor health. Rondell is the son of the Alaudi family, and it was famous for the fact that all their ancestors were outstanding knights. But Rodnell had no insurance talent, but still achieved a place in the 2nd Division. However, this is only thanks to her abilities, and since he is her future husband, his father told him about their family secret. The guy has changed since then, and he started using it like her whole family. But the young lady understands that she wants to break off the engagement with him, and if she opposes it, then no one will listen to her. But if the Moon Eater himself becomes interested in her, then everything will be different. The guy now turns to the moon and asks to read his future. After all, she was so lucky to be born with such a gift, so let her share it with her loved one too. The main character then looks at him furiously and thinks how dare he. After which, she screams out his name and wants to say something else. But at the same moment, the maid comes into the room and says that the lady has just received a letter. The girl then wonders if this is the very letter she was waiting for. After which, she turns around and says that Rondell is free, to which the guy is surprised and asks what she didn't agree on. But the main character then claims that she told him to leave. After which, the guy is even more surprised, and the young lady takes the letter in her hands. He sees that Knox did answer, and this is undoubtedly a letter from the Moon Eater. A short time later, the young lady is already heading to the mansion in a carriage. And when he sees him, he realizes that he looks much more sinister than they said about him. The Marquis invited her to a personal meeting, and although the young lady's family was not against it, however, a little time ago when the young lady was at the family table, her father asked if she understood what she was talking about. The girl then answered yes, and the father hit the table with all his might and then screamed, "What the hell is she doing then? And doesn't she realize how important the alliance with the son of the Alaudi family is for their family?" Therefore, he furiously asked why she was doing this. This family is the head of Hassel, whose name is Nicholas. The young lady then turns to her father and asks him to listen to her first. But when a girl wants to take a glass of water, her hand does not obey. And then Luna doesn't intentionally drop the knife on the floor. The man then says how clumsy his daughter is, and then gives orders. The maid is quick to change the cutlery, and she obeys. The man then says that the Rain should not forget that she is already engaged, and her fiancé's name is Rondell. After all, it's not enough that she sleeps all day long, but also refuses to read to future members of her family, coming up with stupid excuses. But as the owner of such a strong gift, she is obliged to use it for the benefit of others and help her sisters as well as her brother. The girl then realizes that he said it again. And my father always talks only about this. The mother of a young lady who is the wife of the head of the Hassel house, and her name is Sanrea. Now he tells Luna to listen because her father is right. Rosalind founded her own business and gives most of her profits to her family. Soleil is studying at a prestigious school and is preparing to become an outstanding knight in the future to bring good glory to their family. And little Cynthia is trying so hard to find herself the right chosen one that they will approve of the main character, then thinks that only they all always demand something from her for the prosperity of their family. And the young lady's mother then continues and says that like other children, Luna must have her own responsibilities because she must help her family and her fiancé using her gift. Therefore, they cannot possibly approve of her decision to break off the engagement. Rosalind then asked her sister if she and Rondell had really quarreled, because if she felt so bad, then maybe they would call a doctor. The other sister then says that no matter how much they quarrel, it is too much to break all ties so abruptly. Soleil then cries out that this is true because Rondell has always been there for her in difficult times, and she should not do this to him. The young lady then understands that no matter what she tells them, they absolutely do not care about her opinion. But she herself is to blame for this. She naively thought that they would at least understand her a little, but it's not like that at all. The young lady's father rises from the table at this time and says that in any case he needs to think about her proposal, after which everyone gradually began to disperse, leaving the young lady alone. And the girl understands that becoming the bride of a famous warrior was her last opportunity to convince her parents. Therefore, the girl thinks whether she should confess to them that because of the use of the gift, she is becoming weaker every day. Although she thinks that they will not care because her parents will simply make the most of her last year of life. But now, being in the carriage, the girl understands that there is no turning back, and she cannot give up so easily because she has already received a letter personally from the Marquis. And once she was able to interest this person, she cannot turn back. The man who is driving the carriage then claims that they have arrived. And the young lady then thanks him, but when she gets out of the carriage, she suddenly hits herself. And the man then asks if my lady is okay. The girl replies that she herself thinks how inconvenient it is for her to live with one eye. The servant then tells milady that it is very dangerous there, and then asks if she really wants to become this gentleman's bride, because if she is afraid, then maybe she shouldn't go further. Well, the main character then asks if he thinks so, maybe she was born to be there. The man then asks what she is talking about, and claims that he doesn't understand at all, but the young lady then thanks him for agreeing to accompany him there, then states that she hopes his future will be full of abundance and happiness. The Marquis then looks out the window and asks if the girl has arrived. Then he puts on his coat and tells Urin that it's time for them to go. And the young man with blue hair says what a happy gentleman he is, and asks if her presence really affects him that much. When a young lady enters the Marquis's room, she swears and says that she is glad to meet for the first time, and also says that her name is Lunacia Hassel. The girl also claims that she is grateful that he was able to make time for her despite his busy schedule. But then the young lady suddenly hits her foot on the table and screams in pain. Well, then she immediately smiles and asks for forgiveness, after which she claims that she doesn't see where she's going at all. The guy claims that everything is fine, but then he wonders if the girl is blind in her right eye. The young lady then shakes her dress and then states that she should probably get straight to the point. And the young lady asks the master to take her as his wife. The guy then looks at her a little surprised and says that it seems she is there because she is driven by rumors. But he claims that unfortunately he has no plans to get married in the near future. His younger brother already has a fiancée, and most likely after the birth of the child, he will lose his place as head of the family, and he just had to start this rumor so as not to lose his post so early. The young lady then says that he would not like to leave this post at all, and then asks if she is right. After which the girl touches the Marquise's hand, and he takes it into his own. The man then asks, a little surprised, what she is doing. And the main character replies that the Hassel family has one peculiarity. In each of its generations, a child is born capable of seeing the future. The Marquis is then a little surprised, and the young lady claims that everything the owner of the gift needs. This will be touched by a person's hand, and he will immediately be able to see the future near, or even very distant. The man thinks a little after this, and he wonders if the legend about the Hassel family's detractors is true. The girl then claims that if he takes her as his wife, she promises that she will predict his future once a day. And the guy is not obliged to love her because it will simply be a marriage of convenience and she will benefit him as long as it is needed. And when she becomes a burden, he will have the right to end her life. With my own hands. The man now claims that the girl is too calm for a person entering into such a deal, and he asks if the young lady is so eager to become his wife that she is not afraid of sudden reprisals. The girl just smiles after that, and the Marquis sighs and says that, well, at least she is the most interesting of all the previous candidates for the role of his bride. And the main character then says with a smile on her face that this is so. However, before she can finish speaking, the Marquis interrupts her and claims that he absolutely does not believe her words, and if the girl is really able to see the future, then let her read it, and he asks what will happen in this room here and now, and the main character then begins to use her gift. Well, when the young lady lets go of the guy's hand, she suddenly feels tired, and her strength begins to leave her. When the young lady comes to her senses, she asks to forgive her, and also states that when using the force, she feels a little tired in her body, but she will be fine, so don't let him worry. After this, the man is a little silent about the young lady, claiming that now the maid will bring him tea, and perhaps she is new, so she will forget to knock and enter without his permission. But due to the uneven carpet at the front door, it will bend and fall. The maid will not be harmed because the Marquise's friend will have time to catch her, but some of it will spill, and the cup will break on the floor. Therefore, the young lady now claims that if he tries to straighten the carpet now, the future may change. Well, at the same moment, the maid comes into the room and asks the gentleman for forgiveness, after which she claims that she brought him tea, but does not have time to finish her sentence before she stumbles over the carpet. The young man with blue hair then grabs her, preventing her from falling. And the main character then apologizes, but he claims that the future will turn out to be impossible to change. The brunette is a little surprised after this, and his friend too. Well, after that, the Marquis smiles and says that this is interesting, and also claims that he understood everything. And he claims that he is still not clear on how the young lady's ability works, but he claims that for now he believes her. The main character then thanks him for his trust, and at this time the Marquis turns to the maid and says that she will do the cleaning later and he needs tea so she can go. The maid immediately agrees and says that she obeys and then leaves. And the Marquis then says that the young lady's gift is certainly very valuable. And if his memory does not fail him, then Viscount Hassel has 3 daughters and a son. And the second daughter of the family already has a fiancé, so now the man asks if this is true. The main character then wants to answer that this is not true, but the guy with blue hair then claims that he remembered, and the Hassel family promised their second daughter to the son of the Alaudi family for the sake of a profitable alliance. The young lady is a little silent after that. Well, then she answers that everything is true and she was engaged to Rondel Alaudi. However, she has already filed a petition to break off their engagement. The girl understands that she has come so far and is not going to back down. And the brunette thinks a little at this time, and the young ladies claim that if she alone opposes this engagement, then no one will listen to her words, so she would like to enlist his support. And all because she never wanted to be a couple for Rondel. The Marquis and his servant then look a little puzzled, but then the brunette suddenly starts laughing, and she asks if everything was really so obvious and she just didn't want to be with him. The Marquis also says that apparently she disliked the son of Count Alaudi so much that she decided to turn to him. The young lady then repeats the word disliked, but then he also smiles and says that you can say that the girl understands that if she leaves everything as it is, then she will no longer have a chance for a happy future. But if she is with him, then there is a chance that she can change it. The man then realizes that this young lady is full of determination, or her look shows that she is carrying the heavy burden of her past, so he is very curious. Well, the Marquis just sighs and says that he understands, and then claims that it took her courage to go against her family, and he has great respect for such people. Therefore, as a sign of such respect, he will take her as his wife. The main character then says that she is honored to be with the master, after which she bows and thanks him for believing her. The man then claims that in a few days he will transport her to his estate, but it is already quite late, so let her stay there for the night, and in the morning he will prepare a carriage for her and she will go home. The main character then agrees, and the guy thinks that she doesn't seem to really want to return because as soon as the conversation concerns her family, the girl immediately becomes gloomy and sad. After this, the Marquis turns to Urin and tells him to prepare the best room for Lady Hassel. The guy then replies that he listens and obeys, but when the master comes out, he says what an impudence he is because he has a lot of servants in his castle, and he ultimately places all the responsibilities on him. After which, the guy turns to Lunacia and says that they can go. The young lady then agrees, and when she heads to her room, she thinks that this is wonderful because the Marquis nevertheless agreed to the marriage, and the main thing is not to spill the beans that her future cannot be changed in any way, and at what price will it cost her to use the gift? Now she will certainly be free, and the girl hopes that she will like it there, but let her still be nervous. However, the Marquis turned out to be not as scary as rumors make him out to be. And yet the young lady thinks that tomorrow she will have to return home, and she is even interested in looking at the faces of her relatives when they learn the main news. From childhood, the girl wanted the simplest things and to be noticed and heard, but this remained her pipe dream. When the girl wakes up, she wonders where she is, but then realizes that she has returned home. The father was furious that she had left the house without their knowledge and locked her there, although they were only worried that they would be able to use it whenever they wanted. So now the young lady is claiming that their family ties are just fake. The girl understands that when her abilities first appeared, she was happy because she thought that everyone would love her and that she would be useful. To her family as well as to Rondel, she therefore wasted her strength wanting in return only their love, and the girl was too stupid and naive. Therefore now she asks out loud whether Marquis Iltern will come for her as he promised. That same morning the guy told the young lady not to be upset, and the girl asked what he was talking about. But the man claimed that it was written on her face that she didn't want to return home. The main character then asked for forgiveness, and the brunette claimed that she was his future wife, and he would come to the estate and also meet his family. Therefore, let the young lady just wait for him because he will definitely take her. The girl even became a little embarrassed by this, and then insisted that she would wait. And now she understands that there is no choice left, because all that's left is to believe and wait for him. The guy looked at her so decisively, and his eyes were so beautiful reflected in hers. The young man listened and carefully watched her reaction. Therefore, the main character understands that she would be glad to see his eyes until the very end and wants to stay close to him until her last breath. A short time later, the young lady's family is already watching the table, and the woman turns to her husband and then claims that 5 days have passed since he put Luna under house arrest, and she eats almost nothing from what the maids bring her. Well, the man only claims that as expected from this obstinate child, and until she apologizes for her action, he will not let her out of the house. Otherwise, she will not learn the lesson at all. The younger sister. The young lady then says that she still wonders where her sister spent the night, and Rosalind replies that she probably ran away to the city and stayed in some hotel. But she behaves like a little child and would have apologized quickly and be done with it. After all, she urgently needs help from this girl, because very soon there will be a major deal with new business partners. The baby also claims that she needs a prediction, because in a few days there will be a score, and she must find out everything about it. Soleil then gets up from the table and says that he also wants to talk to his sister. Well, the father then screams for him to wait. However, the boy does not listen to him and runs to the door. Well, when he already opens the doors, he runs into Rondel there, and he asks if it's brother Rondel. The guy then apologizes for the sudden visit and says that he just heard that Luna was home. But the young lady's father then interrupts the guy and approaches him with a smile on his face. He apologizes for his stupid daughter, but Rondel says everything is fine. However, he became so scared when he received a letter from Luna, soon exploding their engagement. And I just wanted to know how she was doing because perhaps she was angry that he began to pay less attention to her. Still, his duties in the 2nd Division take up all the time, so perhaps he should apologize to her. The man then sighs and says that's the point, but he couldn't have thought that they could have quarreled so much, and he asks if the guy wants to talk to her. The young man then answers that yes, but suddenly some screams are heard from the corridor asking the guy to wait and that he is not allowed to go there. The young lady's father and her fiancé then turn around, and the maid then asks the man to stop because he is not assigned and he cannot just barge in. Well, the guy then asks what they are talking about. And don't the local servants really know who he is? The brunette then turns to Urine and says that it's all because of him, because he said that to propose marriage you need flowers and the appropriate outfit, so he had to prepare for the visit for a long time. And the servant with blue hair then claims that he is a hero of the last war and is now known only as the Marquis of the Moon Eater and lives in the forest as some kind of hermit, so it is not surprising that they do not know his face. One of the servants then asks in shock if this is the Marquis the Moon Eater. But at the same time, someone runs into the corridor and screams in shock, how dare they show up at the Hassel mansion without due respect? After which, he also screams for them to leave his house immediately. But when a man sees this guy, he is immediately surprised. And seeing the coat of arms on his chest, he asks if it's really him. But the guy then interrupts him and asks Viscount Hassel for forgiveness for such a sudden visit. After all, they are meeting for the first time. So the guy introduces himself and claims that his name is Knox Iltern, and he is also a marquis who is also the Moon Eater. And he came there to make the gray-haired Lady Lunacia become his wife. The young lady's father, then in shock, asks if he wants to ask for Lunacia's hand in marriage. And the young lady's mother then asks what he's talking about, but the guy interrupts her and says that he wants to take their daughter as his wife because he fell in love with her. And that is all. Well, Rondell then screams that this is impossible. After all, Luna is engaged to him and she will never become the Marquise's wife. However, the young lady's father then turns to the guy and tells him to calm down, and the Marquis then claims that he must be the son of Count Alaudi. And after all, he had already contacted his father and he agreed to break off the engagement. The guy then asks in shock what he is talking about. And the young man with blue hair claims that before coming to the Hassel house, they sorted out legal issues and had to contact Count Alaudi regarding his marriage to Luna. It said that the man was planning an engagement to the daughter of the Hassel family, but if he really loved Lady Lunacia, then he would not interfere with his happiness. These words were written by Count Alaudi. And now a young man with blue hair smiling claims that such things are happening. Rondell then asks why his father did this. And the servant then claims that the fact is that Mr. Knox, as a war hero, has the right to interfere in the affairs of the Imperial Knights. The Iltern family has a much higher status than the Alaudi family, especially among the Royal Guard, and his father simply did not want to make enemies. And also Lady Hassel personally told him that I never wanted to be a match for Mr. Rondell. But the guy then screams that this is a lie, and Luna would never say that. Well, the Marquis then asks if he is so sure of this, because in any case he left the preparation of marriage documents for later. After which, he asks the maid where Lady Hassel is, and the woman then replies that the girl is locked in the pantry. But the Marquis then asks what locked means. And why do they treat their own daughter this way? She is blind in her right eye, and it is dangerous for her to be alone in the dark. But the man then asks what blind means because his daughter is completely healthy. The woman also claims that if something happened to their daughter, they would definitely notice it. The young lady's ex-husband then replies that exactly, and if something had happened to her, they would have known right away. And the brunette then realizes that no one notices her. Neither her fiancé nor her relatives care about her problems, and she herself no longer sees the point in complaining about anything. Therefore, the Marquis now claims that this is why she wanted to leave this house. After which, he asks the maid where the young lady is being kept and orders her to take him there. The woman immediately agrees and tells the gentleman to follow her. When a guy leaves, the whole family looks after him. And the third daughter of the family looking at him thinks how wonderful he is. And this man is simply ideal for the role of her groom. The main character is in the pantry at this time and understands that in the end she is collecting things in anticipation that the Marquis will come and take her. But she has nothing else to do there. The girl picks up one of the dresses and thinks that she doesn't really want to take a lot of things with her. And before she was locked, she managed to take a couple of dresses from her room. And of course, she also took her memoirs with her. But then the young lady notices the brooch and realizes that Rondell gave it to her on her birthday last year, and the guy probably just asked the maid to buy any beautiful trinket to suit her taste. Everyone forgot about the young lady's birthday, and she received this gift only 2 weeks after it, despite the fact that she and Soleil were born on the same day. But the holiday and gifts were only for him. Now the young lady throws away this hairpin and then claims that she does not want to take it with her. The girl puts her memoirs in her bag, but does not understand what the noise is outside. However, at the same moment, someone sharply opens the door, which scares the girl. The guy asks how she is doing, and the young lady turning around is very surprised. After all, the Marquis came after all, and the guy now with a bouquet of beautiful flowers claims that he has come to pick up his dear bride. The main character then says that the gentleman came for her after all, but then asks why he brought the bouquet. The guy then claims that Urin said that it is such a custom to give flowers to the bride, after which he offers to leave there, and the girl agrees. Then he tries to pick up his bag. But the guy then snatches the bag from her hands and carries it, after which the young lady thanks him. But suddenly someone screams for Lunacia to wait, and when the young lady turns around, she sees her ex-husband and father as well as everyone else from the family. They take turns screaming, and Rondell then asks her to say that this is just a bad joke because she will never break off her engagement with him. The father then asks how she can leave her family because she is so needed there. The young lady's mother then claims that they will ask the Marquis not to bother her anymore, and the youngest in the family asks her little sister not to leave. She also asks where her little sister met the Marquis. At this time, the man and the servant are watching all this, and Rondell then grabs the girl by the shoulders and then screams for her to answer him. But the main character then only hits him on the arm, pushing him away, and he tells the guy to shut up. The young man then turns to Luna in shock, and the main character is told that she wants to marry Mr. Iltern, and henceforth she will no longer use her powers at their behest, after which the young lady claims that this is all she wanted to tell them, and therefore asks not to interfere with her building her own future. The Marquis then puts his hand on her shoulder and claims that this is well said, and it was not for nothing that he chose her as his bride, after which he claims that from now on they will be allowed to see Lunacia only with his permission, and they will no longer ask her to look into their future. The father then shakes in shock and asks if the girl revealed her secret to the Marquis, and this shouldn't have gone beyond their family. The main character then claims that she and the market will very soon become a family, so she doesn't see any problems and doesn't want to hide anything from her future husband. Rondell then screams that he understood everything, and the Marquis wants to take the girl as his wife only because of her abilities, after which he turns to the moon and claims that the man is simply using her and let it begin. Well, the main character then just turns around and claims that those who used her were all of them, and she has nothing else to talk to them about, after which she tells the master that it's time for them to go. And the guy just asks if the lady is sure and if she wants to say goodbye to her family. Everyone else then expects this in shock, and the main character even then claims that for that minute they didn't even notice that she was completely blind in her right eye, after which she bids them farewell. A short time later, a young man with blue hair happily claims that they have arrived. He welcomes sweet Lunacia to the Iltern family residence, and the main character is then only surprised and says, "What a wonderful bedroom it is." The guy then reports that they put the bouquet in a vase with water and had to prepare for her move in a hurry. Urin also claims that her personal maids will come to her a little later, and the girls will have a good rest because we have suffered so much these days, and also let her convey her wishes about dinner to the maids and ask them to prepare a warm bath. The young lady then turns to the gentleman and thanks him, but asks to listen, after which she claims that she is obliged to predict his future once a day. Starting from that day, the guy then replies that yes, he remembers about their deal and concluded it because her gift is very useful, but he claims that she does not have to predict his future every day. The young lady is a little surprised after this and asks what he is talking about. Well, the guy just raises his hand and claims that if he needs something, he will ask her about it himself, but now he doesn't need anything from her. After which he claims that on this note he will leave her and tells Urin that they will go. The guys then agree and wave his hand as if saying goodbye, and the young lady remaining in the room realizes that she is alone again. The girl understands that their agreement was based only on her abilities, and she was given such a luxurious bedroom without demanding absolutely anything in return. And the young lady thinks that it's not scary if she doesn't predict the future for him every day. But unlike her father, this guy does not believe that she should fulfill her duty every day, and the young people understand that she will no longer have to indulge the selfish requests of her sister's brother and Rondel, and all this thanks to the Marquis. But he is always so kind to her, although his gentle character runs counter to his menacing image. The girl understands that now, fortunately, she can hear him, but very soon the day will come when she will no longer be able to hear his kind words. The man is heading down the corridor at this time, and the servant then turns to him and then asks why the gentleman is so kind to Lady Lunacia. And was it really possible that his cold heart finally put him under women's charms? But what luck this is! The brunette then asks what he is talking about, and the young man with blue hair claims that he has now settled down, but before his retirement, he never refused female attention. And during the war years, even the ladies from the brothels gave him the nickname Holy Knight of the Night, although for him it was too vulgar. And when he learned from their colleagues what they called him, he almost died of laughter. Well, the brunette then tells the guy to quickly shut up, because all these are bygone days, and if Lady Hassel finds out about this, the guy will lose his head. The young man with blue hair then says what a terrible gentleman. But he claims he understands and will keep his mouth shut. The guy says that although the past is quite difficult to forget, and then the Marquis was literally covered with red liquid every day by his enemies and his comrades plunged into eternal sleep one after another. And now he only has problems with his younger brother, but even this is no longer so important because he will have his own family very soon. Yes, the guy then asks what family means, and he understands that he could not leave Miss Hassel to the mercy of fate, and she was forced to obey her family from long before her relatives since they raised and supported her all her life. But the girl herself decided to take such a desperate step and offer herself to be his bride. Despite all her determination and endurance, he noticed how the hand holding the bouquet was trembling with fear, and for the first time he felt such a strong desire to protect someone. A little time later, when the Marquis is already on the street, someone runs up to them and screams that something bad has happened. The brunette then asks what happened, and their squad was recently sent to explore the forest, but he returned alone and looks terrible. The knight then begins to explain the situation. And at this time, the main character is already greeted by the maid and says that she is glad to meet the mistress, and from today she is also her personal maid. The girl also says her name is Sierra, and she will be happy to serve her. The young lady then thinks about the word servant and realizes that there have always been many servants in the Hassel house. They worked hard every day to serve her family, but she did not have such luxury, and as Rosalind and Cynthia said, this was done to avoid revealing her gift to ordinary servants. For a very long time, communication with them was forbidden for her, and any maid who tried to talk to her was immediately reprimanded by her sisters. And now the young lady's personal maid insists that she should not hesitate to contact her for advice or on any issue, because she is there solely for the comfort of the mistress. The main character then, with a smile on her face, says that she is glad to meet you, and the maid replies that she is too. A little time later, the girl is already straightening up in bed and claims that, by the way, she heard that the lady sees poorly with her right eye and asks if this is true. The girl then asks if the Marquis told her about this and wonders if he really noticed. And the maid replies that yes, and she thinks that is why she was chosen as her maid, after which the main character asks what she is talking about. And the girl claims that her lover is a subordinate of Mr. Knox, and he participated in the last war and also lost his right eye in one of the battles, so she understands how difficult it can be. The young lady then says this and understands that 3 years ago, a war came to their lands, but fortunately it did not last long, about 6 months, and the goal of the invaders was to conquer the lands of their empire. Many fell in this massacre, but there was a man who did not even think of retreating, and he was the one who led their empire to victory. This hero was Mr. Iltern Knox. The girl heard that thanks to his amazing military strategy, casualties were kept to a minimum, and the war ended faster than expected. But the gentleman was left with deep emotional wounds. The maid claims that since then she has been supporting her lover and helping in those things that are difficult for him, and she thinks that with such a gesture, Mr. Knox would like to express his concern for the comfort of his mistress. And the young lady then understands why Sierra became her servant and is a little embarrassed. And the main character claims that there were a lot of rumors swirling around the Marquis and all about how scary a person he was, but in reality, he turned out to be such a caring man. The maid then screams with enthusiasm that Mr. Knox is a wonderful person, and despite serious trauma, her lovers still serve him. And the main character asks if he is serving and thinks why after all the war is over, so she doesn't understand why the guy needs soldiers there. But the maid then asks the lady if she would like some tea. And when the young lady tries to answer, Sierra claims that they recently purchased such wonderful tea straight from a neighboring country, and she claims that she will immediately brew it for Mrs. The young lady then remains alone in the room and thinks that Sierra is such a kind girl, although from the outside she seems rather restless. Well, the young lady thinks that they can become friends, after which the girl reaches for her bag and says that since this is the case, now is the time, after which she takes out a notebook from there. The girl begins to write down there that at the moment she is only blind in her right eye and does not know how soon she will lose all the other 5 senses. So she wants to continue writing down what she has to do this year. Together with new friends and Mr. Knox? Well, the girl says that it's a pity that she has so little time left for this. When the girl finishes her notes, she looks at them and claims that she has thought enough for today. As a result, she wrote down everything she put up with in her family's home, to create new memories before she falls into eternal sleep. But now she claims that the maid went to make her tea, but she's still not there. However, when the main character goes out into the corridor, she sees Sierra desperately sitting on the floor. So she immediately runs up to the girl and asks what happened and if she's okay. The boy with blue hair then tries to explain the situation. And the maid compliments him and claims that her beloved Robert has disappeared. The main character, when she asks if he is missing. And the young man with blue hair then claims that Robert's detachment was supposed to explore the thicket of the forest near the castle, but it seems the group encountered a flock of blood-sucking bats, and almost everyone has already returned to the castle except Robert. Well, the main character then asks in shock why such dangerous creatures live in the vicinity. The girl understands that she only read about such monsters in books, but now she understands that this is not so important. After which he asks whether it is worth sending a rescue team because no one can do it. Well then, someone comes into the room and claims that this is why he is going out to look for him. It turns out to be the Marquis, and the main character then asks if he is really going to go himself. But the guy only replies that his subordinate has disappeared, and he will take responsibility, after which he will personally find him. And if they do not hurry, then at night the local monsters will become even more active. Therefore he must find it before this moment. The main character now looks at the maid and understands that when she talked about Robert she was so happy, and now she looks so miserable and broken, so the young lady clenches her hands. And at this time, the Marquis tells Urin that they should go to the east, and the guy goes with him. The young man with blue hair then asks what the gentleman is talking about and asks Togo to wait, because how can he leave Sierra in this state? But the maid then says that no and everything is fine, after which she thanks Mr. Urin, and the girl also apologizes to the lady for her unsightly appearance. The young man with blue hair then turns to sleepwalking and says that he thinks she should take a break with Sierra, but the main character then refuses and claims that it's time to fulfill their agreement. The man then stops and claims that he still doesn't understand how her power works, but asks if she can see where Robert is now. The young lady then says that she will try. Then she asks the man to give her his hand and uses his strength. Well then, the young lady sees how the gentleman will come to the scene later, and at that moment the bear will already tear Roberto to pieces, after which the maid will cry a lot when she sees the lifeless body of her husband. And the young lady now opens her eyes in shock. The Marquis then asks what happened and what she saw, and the main character then replies that he will not have time to save Mr. Robert. The guy asks what she is talking about, and the young lady replies that a bear with a crescent-shaped scar on his forehead will attack Mr. Robert in a cave, and it looks like this is that bear's lair. The man then asks why he will be in the cave with the bear, since the detachment was exploring another part of the forest. The boy with blue hair then also claims that a bear should not have appeared in the bat's territory. And the main character then asks you to believe her because right now Robert is in the cave. The brunette then claims that if she was mistaken, then the guy could die. But after that, he says that he believes Lady Hazel. After which he turns to the young man with blue hair and tells him just in case to send a detachment of those who can still fight to the east, where Roberto was last seen, and the guy obeys. And the Marquis then claims that he will go instead of what Lady Hazel said, that is to the bear's den. But the main character then asks if he will go alone because it is very dangerous. But the guy just puts his hand on her cheek and promises that he will save Robert because thanks to her strength, they will definitely return alive. The young lady then looks at the guy a little embarrassed, and the Marquis then turns around and tells Urine that they are moving forward. Well, the young man with blue hair only claims that the gentleman does not have to constantly pretend to be a tough guy. The main character then folds her hands and in her thoughts asks them to return safe and sound as soon as possible. That same evening, the girl wakes up on the sofa and wonders where she is now, but then realizes that she was waiting for the Marquis to return, but eventually fell asleep. And when the girl looks out the window, she realizes that it is already evening and immediately gets up from her seat. But she does not understand where the Marquis and Mr. Robert are. At the same time, a servant with blue hair comes into the room and says that he knew that since she was not alone, who would he find her there? The girl then turns to Mr. Urine and asks if they found Robert. However, the guy then just points to the room behind him and tells the girl to take a look for herself. And when the young lady does this, she sees the maid hugging her master with a happy smile on her face. The main character then, with a smile on her face, says that thank God everything is fine with him. The young man with blue hair then claimed that they found out why Robert was there. And it turns out that when attacked by mice, he stumbled and fell off a cliff, after which he had to look for the way home alone. But since it was already getting dark, he decided to wait in a cave, which, as the girl said, turned out to be a bear's lair. And thanks to the lady, they found Robert safe and sound. At this time, the Marquis also enters the room, and the main character then says that he is also intact, but the man then asks who he is. In her opinion, some bear is not able to defeat him. But he then bows and says that more importantly, thanks to her, they were able to save his subordinate, so the guy claims that he is extremely grateful for her help. The main character then, a little puzzled, asks Togo to raise his head and claims that she simply fulfilled part of the contract and read the future only once. But the Marquis does not seem to listen to her and claims that he is obliged to thank her because she, of her own free will, decided to help them and saved the life of his man. After this, the guy turns to Lady Hassel and says that they couldn't have done it without her, so he thanks her. The main character then looks at him a little surprised and realizes that in her family, she had the responsibility of reading everyone their future, and her strength was taken for granted. No one thought to thank her for this, but her abilities helped save someone's life, and for the first time the girl heard sincere words of gratitude. So it's so nice. The young man with blue hair then claims that Sierra and Robert do not know about her gift. Well, they told them that the girl advised them to first explore the cave next to the castle, after which the two approach the young lady and Robert sincerely thanks the lady, because thanks to her he was able to get to his beloved safely. After this, the main character is a little embarrassed and says that this is really a small thing, but then she turns to the Marquis and claims that she wanted to ask him something, after which the girl claims that he seems to be looking for a place called the Moonlight, but then the young lady asks why he needs this. However, at the same moment, the young lady's right eye begins to hurt, and the girl realizes that she can't see anything, and she hasn't used her abilities for a long time. After which, the strength leaves the young lady, and she collapses. The Marquis at this time does not allow her to fall and asks what is wrong with her. However, Luna never opens her eyes. The girl remembers her childhood and how she cried in the corner. Well then, her grandmother came into the room and asked what the baby was doing. The girl then answered with tears in her eyes that her dad had scolded her. But Rosalind and Solia quarreled over some trifle, and she stood between them trying to calm us down. My sister pushed her away, and she accidentally bumped into Cynthia. The girl then began to cry. But the grandmother is now patting her granddaughter on the head and claims that she did nothing wrong, so she blames her father for treating her this way. Well, the little girl then turns to her grandmother and asks why Dad is always angry only at her and if she did something terrible. And also, is it really all because she is not as beautiful as her sisters? The girl then claims that she would like to be just like her grandmother. If only she could read the future, then everyone would love her. The woman then hugged her daughter and claimed that she no longer wanted to use this gift and would no longer read future readings, no matter who asked her to do so. After all, this is not a gift at all, but a curse for their family, and the baby will definitely find those who will love her for who she is. After which, she tells Lunacia that she loves her very much, even without this gift, so they ask her to remember this. The girl now understands that her grandmother was the only one who sincerely loved her, and she left her memoirs as a farewell. And sometime later, she plunged into eternal sleep from illness, and after she plunged into eternal sleep, her abilities awakened. The girl completely forgot about her words, and with all her heart wanted to receive the love of her family, so she unquestioningly fulfilled any of their requests. But the grandmother was right, because seeing the future is not a gift at all, but a curse that fell on her. Now the young lady gradually opens her eyes and sees in front of her an agitated maid who cries out that the lady has finally woken up. The young lady then turns to her and apologizes, but asks how long it has been since she lost consciousness. Sierra then says that about 3 hours passed and the lady fainted right in the arms of Mr. Knox. After which he brought her there, and the main character, a little surprised, asks whether the Marquis carried her in his arms. The maid then replies that yes, and he brought in the mistress conditionally, the princess. After such words, the young lady is a little embarrassed and asks why, because her face is already crying from embarrassment. Sierra then says that about her lover, she wanted to express her gratitude in person in front of the mistress, or now the maid is bowing. The young lady then says that there is no need to thank her because she didn't do anything like that. But Sierra then enthusiastically says that she and her husband will do everything possible to repay her kindness, but first they need to get the lady in order because Mr. Knox is expecting her at dinner. The main character then asks that it's already quite late, and he wonders if the guy has been waiting all this time to have dinner with her. At this time, the maid with a smile on her face points to the dressing table and tells the lady to sit down. The young lady agrees and does so. A little time later, she already goes down to the dining room, and when the Marquis sees the girl, he asks if she has woken up and how she is feeling. The main character then replies that yes, she was just tired during the day, that's why she fell exhausted. The girl also says that the gentleman had to wait for her, so I apologize for the inconvenience, but again does not answer that everything is in order, after which he tells her to sit down. After this, the maids begin to serve the table, and when the young lady tries one of the dishes, she says that it is very tasty. The brunette then replies that he's glad she has an appetite. And the young lady then realizes that the food there is much better than in the Hassel House, and therefore she should properly enjoy its taste before it disappears. The Marquis then says that the girl is enjoying her food so much, and he immediately remembers one of his subordinates, and this guy's family ran a farm, so even at the height of the war, he ate any food that was given out with special pleasure. But unfortunately, this guy was wounded by poisoned arrows, and before falling into eternal sleep, he asked to be spared his suffering. The main character is now cutting a piece of meat and asking if he has decided to fulfill his dying request. And the guy replies that yes, and as in the case of Robert, he will fight for any life that can still be saved. But if there is no way out, then nothing can be done. After which the Marquis turns to Miss Hassel and claims that she seems to have said that he could put her into eternal sleep if he no longer needed her. Therefore, now the guy asks whether even after his story she is sure of her words. The young lady then replies that she is confident and did not doubt her decision, and also thinks that this outcome will be the most correct because she is fully aware of everything, so she is not so scared. Because the Marquis turned out to be such a kind person there. The guy heard this and is a little surprised and embarrassed, after which he looks away and claims that he allows himself too much in relation to her. The main character then did not hear what he said and asks what happened. But the guy then only claims that everything is fine, so let her not pay attention. Well, more importantly, he should apologize to her. The main character then asks if he wants to apologize and for what, and the guy then answers that, and when he moved her to the bedroom. Then he saw an open book on the table and glanced at it. The girl is then very embarrassed and asks if he saw what was written there. And the guy raises his hand and claims that he only read the open page, after which he apologizes for this, but claims that he did not read anything shameful from there and that she is even taking notes very nicely. The girl then asks if it's cute, and the Marquis looking at her expresses that he thinks that the young lady is just like a dog, after which he claims that if he is not mistaken, then it was written that she would like to see a lot of beautiful landscapes. So after dinner, he would like to grab her somewhere, and the young lady asks what he is talking about. The guy then claims that he wants to show her a beautiful landscape. And a little time later, they are already in the middle of the forest. The girl then tells the Marquis to listen and claims that in such darkness they will not see anything. The guy then claims that in this forest neither the moon nor the stars are visible. But there is something that he wants to show her, and when they walk a little further, the girl looks at this beauty with admiration. After all, in the middle of the forest there are many fireflies, and the main character claims that they are so beautiful and then asks what they are. The Marquis then states that this insect is called the moon firefly. They gather in groups and only go out at night, after which he asks if it is beautiful. And the young lady with a smile on her face replies that it is very beautiful, after which the guy smiles. He claims that these fireflies are closely related to the moonglade she asked about. And this clearing is known for the fact that the grass growing there has special properties. And there is a legend that the clearing is located in this forest, and the grass growing on it can work miracles. Also, during a lunar eclipse, you can find magical stones of indescribable beauty there. The girl then replies that she remembered and read about a similar place in books, and this is not surprising, because this is a fairly popular fairy tale about this place. The brunette then claims that he is actually looking for that clearing on the orders of the heir to the empire. The young lady then asks if the future emperor himself really ordered him to do this, and now the girl understands why this guy settled in this forest and even took his subordinates with him, because he not only lives here, but he is entrusted with an important mission. The brunette now claims that they say this stone will be presented as a gift to the empress, but he does not know the whole truth. And his friend personally asked him for this favor, making it clear that the crown prince of the empire needed the stone. The Marquis was given complete freedom of action and was even allowed to perform military service, so he left the household to his younger brother and he himself moved to this castle. Well, the young lady is now asking if he is sure that he can find that clearing, and the guy replies that they found several stone tablets left there by their ancestors, and there is an assumption that if they decipher them, they will be able to find the place they need. But so far they haven't found anything, and the young lady then thinks that if this guy was assigned such a difficult task, then she wonders if her abilities can help him in finding the lunar clearing. The guy now claims that he is already getting cold and offers to return to the castle, and the young lady then asks the gentleman to wait and then says that he remembered something. After which he turns to the young lady and claims that he would like to ask her to call him differently because very soon they will get married and she is his future bride. And also in the near future, she will officially become his wife, so he thinks it would be more correct to address each other by name. The girl then gets a little embarrassed and then addresses him as Mr. Knox and asks if that will work. Then he answers you that yes, he will also call her simply Lunacia. The girl then replies that it's good, but she herself thinks how strange it is because the gentleman is just calling her by name. However, as soon as he says it, her soul becomes so warm and calm. At this time, the guy holds out his hand and asks to be allowed to lead her, because the girl is blind only in her right eye. But it will be unsafe to move in the dark, so he asks to be allowed to take her hand. The young lady then agrees and extends her hand to Mr. Knox. A month later, the young lady's father is furiously banging on the table and screaming that this merchant has fooled them. The young lady's mother then comes into the room and asks dear what happened. Well, he screams that just recently he bought a fruit grove from a merchant, but there was a hole in the contract, because of which this territory came out of their possession, and as a result, he lost both land and money. But if Lunacia had been there, this wouldn't have happened. The woman then claims that a month has already passed since she left for the Marquis's castle, and she hoped that the girl would come to her senses and return. But it turned out not to be so. Soleil's grades deteriorated noticeably, and Cynthia stopped attending social evenings. Only Rosalind is doing well, and despite the absence of Lunacia, she is making progress in her business and does not incur any losses. Well, the man is now screaming that they also broke off all ties with the Alaudi family and all their troubles because of the behavior of this stupid girl, because she so wants to make their family unhappy. Rosaline stands outside the door at this time and is silent, after which she decides to leave. Well then, one of her subjects meets her in the corridor and says that he has finally found the lady, and then claims that he brought her a sales report for the month, as she asked. The girl then tells him to give her this report, and the guy hands it over. But when the woman sees that everything is not very good, there she squeezes this paper and claims that this cannot continue, and she needs to see her future again. A month has already passed since Lunacia settled in Mr. Knox's castle, and now she runs to her future husband a little excited. The guy then asks if something happened, and the young lady asks to be allowed to read his future before the expedition, because he could get into trouble if she doesn't. However, the guy then says that there is no need, and they will manage without it because today they will head along a safe route and unforeseen situations should not arise. But the girl helped them yesterday because thanks to her they avoided meeting the wolf, and no one was hurt during the entire expedition. Well, the young lady then asks what is their agreement, but the guy then just puts his hand on her cheek. And she asks if he didn't tell her that he wouldn't stick to it, and even more so using the gift exhausts her greatly, because once a girl slept for 3 whole days because of this. The young lady then says that everything is not so, and the young man with blue hair then turns to Mr. Knox and claims that his wife just wants to be useful to her husband and asks, "Is it so bad?" And then asks what the guys think, but they answer that they are like no, and they are so jealous of the master. After which, the servant with blue hair claims that his wife is such a nice lady, and she even made them cookies the other day, after which they thank the lady again. And one of the knights then says that he also wants to try the lady's baked goods. But another knight then says that Robert is also a little jealous, because the lady has become the best friend of his beloved. Well, the man then shakes that this is not true. And the Marquis then turns to the young lady and asks if she baked sweets for the knights. And he asks if this was one of her wishes that she wrote down in her diary. The girl then answers yes, a little embarrassedly, and the brunette then claims that all his subordinates are because of this. He's just crazy about her, but he claims that he really liked her cookies, and they really were incredibly delicious. The young lady then embarrassedly thanks the gentleman for his praise, and all the knights watching this just smile. But when the Marquis turns around, they immediately turn away, and one of them claims that they should try harder this time too. The young man with blue hair then turns to the cutie Lunacia and tells you not to worry because today they will not look for the moonlit clearing. And they received an order from the Crown Prince to explore the territory where there are useful resources, and there should be no monsters there. The young lady then remembers the prince and realizes that he seems to be on good terms with Mr. Knox. And at this time, the Marquis gets on his horse and says that they are leaving, after which the young lady says that she will wait for Mr. Knox and also tells him to be careful. A short time later, the young lady is already in the kitchen and preparing something. The girl understands that such wonderful people live in this castle, and unlike the Hassel house, every day spent there is like a holiday for her. The maid at this time turns to the mistress and says that they have lit the stove as she asked. The girl then thanks her and asks her to prepare a baking tray. She understands that she really wants to pay these people for all the kindness that they show to her, so she decided to help them find the lunar clearing. The girl tried to look at Mr. Knox's future in a year, but she couldn't see anything because it was so blurry that she couldn't really understand anything. After that, she slept for about 3 days, and when she woke up, her right eye was completely blind, and now she cannot see far into the future. However, the girl understands that she sees those nearby without any problems, despite the fact that her right eye cannot see at all, but she remains surprisingly calm. The girl does not know how soon the master will notice that she is gradually losing the ability to feel and how he will react to this. But then the maid suddenly makes a strange sound and the young lady asks what happened. And Sierra then claims that her beloved recently brought these berries from an expedition, but they turned out to be so fresh, so she thought that they could use them in cooking. But these berries are so sour that they are impossible to eat. The main character then takes one of the berries in her hands and asks if they are really so sour. After which, the girl puts this berry in her mouth, although the maid tells the lady that it is not necessary. However, when the young lady tries it, she is surprised. The crown prince of the Sunrat Empire named Gendel is sitting at his table at this time. At this time, a raven flies into the room, and the young man with green hair then asks if this is a message from the Moon Eater himself, although he is sure that this letter was sent by Urin, after which he unties the letter from his paw and reads it. It says that the search is going according to plan, and a full answer will be provided later. But reading one of the lines of His Highness, he is shocked. And he cries out, "Does Knox really have a bride?" When he reads further, he realizes that according to Urine, the Moon Eater is happy with her. And the guy then, with a smile on his face, realizes that he has not received such wonderful news for a long time. But it seemed to him that these were just rumors about the guy really finding a bride. Therefore, now His Highness claims that he simply must see such a wonderful lady in person. A short time later, the Marquis asks if Lunacia is really unwell. And the maid then replies that yes, since they prepared the sponge cake, the mistress began to behave strangely. She no longer wants to cook sweets and stopped drinking her favorite tea. And the young man with blue hair then claims that if you think like that, then from that very moment, the subordinates also stopped receiving sweets from the cutie Lunacia, and they still walk around like they've been lost. The Marquis then says that in addition, she began to eat much less even at dinner, and the maid is now asking if the mistress is in pain so she cannot eat normally. The guy understands that for the last few days he has been busy with documents and he did not have any time to be alone with Lunacia. After which he claims that he understood everything and will try to figure it out himself, but first he wants to see her in order to see for himself in everything. After all, it is his duty as a husband to be with his wife in difficult moments. The young man with blue hair then says, "Keep it up," and asks if you, sir, woke up that same womanizer known as the Holy Knight of the Night, because he didn't think that he would show this personality of his so soon. But the brunette then only tells his subordinates to shut the door, otherwise he will kill him, and that is a thing of the past, and he was also young and stupid, so it's time to forget about it. Urine then begins to whisper with the maid and claims that in those days the gentleman was still a womanizer, and Sierra then tells the guy to stop reminding the gentleman of the abbot because he will very soon become a married man. After this, the Marquis only gets angry and asks if he is already gossiping with Sierra. But the guy then says that he is interested in watching how cute Lunacia makes the gentleman happy, and the guy then thinks what happy means, after which he understands that when he and she looked at the fireflies, the girl seemed very happy. Therefore, maybe if he finds out what she wants, he can make her happy. The maid at this time asks if the lady needs a change of scenery and says, how about a walk into the city just for the two of them? After all this way, they can spend time alone and... Well, then someone interrupts the maid's words because someone is knocking on the room. The brunette then answers that maybe, after which he tells the one who knocks to come in. After this, the maid opens the door and asks for forgiveness, but tells the master that an important guest has arrived. Well then, His Highness crawls out behind the maid and claims that she is wrong here because he is rather an unusual guest. The man then asks why Gendel came today, and the guy replies that he actually missed him, and besides, Urine sent him some rather interesting news. The Marquis then asks what the guy told him there. And the young man with blue hair says that Mr. Gendal hasn't received anything like that from them for a long time. Introduce it, so he thought of giving him a mini report on their successes. But the brunette then claims that he, it seems, did not ask the guy about this, but the young man replies that he is not his slave. His Highness then claims that he actually came to see his old friend and his new bride. Therefore now, the main character in shock asks if the Crown Prince really wants to meet her. The Marquis then replies that yes, he is already waiting for her in the living room. The girl then realizes that His Royal Highness Prince Gendal von Lesenras is the beloved Crown Prince of the Empire and the only child of the royal family. Although he is not freedom-loving enough, he is very smart and loves to communicate with everyone. Thanks to his unconventional thinking by his age, he has achieved outstanding results in political affairs. And the girl is now wondering if the prince really wants to see her. The Marquis at this time says that if she doesn't want to, then he can drive him away, but the main character then claims that he is of royal blood, so that's not possible. But the brunette then he answers that it's possible with him. And the young lady then realizes that she and Mr. Knox are old friends, and I wonder how long they have known each other, because if his close friend wants to see her, then she will still meet with him. Therefore now, the young lady refuses and asks to give her a little time to get herself in order, because she does not want to disgrace the name of Mr. Knox. Therefore, I am obliged to greet the Karaganda resident properly. Brunette then claims that if she wants it so much he won't stop her, but then he wants to say something else. However, she just turns around and says that it's okay if she gets tired of him, then let her tell him right away, and he'll just throw him out into the forest in the Oakham. Luna just smiles and says that she understands. A short time later, the girl already enters the living room and asks for forgiveness for being late. The girl then lifts the hem of her dress and says that it is an honor for her to personally meet the prince of their empire, after which she asks to be allowed to introduce herself and claims that her name is Lunacia. Well, the guy then doesn't let her finish and says that the girl shouldn't be so serious because she can skip all the formalities. After all, he never liked this, after which the young man with green hair tells her to sit down because he just wants to chat. The main character then agrees, but she herself thinks that the rumors were true, and he doesn't look like an aristocrat at all. The guy at this time claims that he is curious how a person like Knox could like her. After all, I knew that his boyfriend wouldn't just marry just anyone. The young lady then doesn't even know how to answer and understands that she just said that if he gets tired of him, he can get rid of her at any moment, but she cannot say so directly about it. His Highness then says that the guy's choice should have been influenced by something very significant, and out of curiosity, he studied documents about the Hassel family. And from old records, I learned that their family can see the future. They also say that in every generation, a child is born with a similar gift. The main character is then silent for a while and then sighs. And she claims that this is just a story invented by her ancestors and nothing more, after which she asks whether His Highness really believes in such a thing. But the young man claims that they will start with the fact that he ordered Knox to look for the lunar clearing, which is a place known from legends. And if Lady Lunacia really knew how to read the future, then he would not be surprised that it was she who became his bride. The main character then tells His Highness that, let's say it's true, but after that she asks what then. The girl understands that their family specifically hid their abilities from the royal family because they did not want to influence the future of the empire, so she must behave very carefully. And the young man with green hair is now claiming that if the path were true, then Lady Lunacia would be in great demand, and he would even suggest that she give up Knox and become his wife. The main character then asks in shock what he is talking about, and Urin at this time screams to His Highness that this cannot be done. The young man with green hair then asks with a smile on his face if the guy is eavesdropping, and the servant then claims that someone like him needs an eye and an eye. And after all, Mr. Knox finally found himself a bride, and he was going to take away his happiness, and this is not manly. After which he asks Mr. Knox if this is true, after which the guy enters the room and claims that he has chosen her as his future wife. Therefore, it is wrong to refuse it like this. The girl then claims that she didn't even think and understands that all people need from her is her abilities, but next to the master, she finally knew happiness. His Highness then says that at first he did not believe the letter that Urin sent him well. Who would have thought that his old friend would be so obsessed with one woman? And this is so unlike Knox Bryu. No then turns to Gendel and says that his long tongue is the right path to the wolves on the street. The Marquis then tells the guy to stop talking nonsense because he only confuses his bride with such talk, and he already has a chosen one. And she was recognized by his father as the next empress. However, the guy replies that this is just a political marriage, and moreover, after the birth of at least one child, he can have as many concubines as he wants. And the main character thinks about the concubine's word and understands that if it weren't for His Highness's love for such jokes, she would have thought that she had been discovered and was going to be taken away from there intact in order to use her abilities. But the guy then smiles and says that it's a joke, but he's there to convey it, after which he shows a roll of paper. The brunette then asks what it is, and the guy replies that it is a letter from the Emperor himself. And there he talks about how glad he is that Mr. Knox has met his destiny and really wants to meet his bride just like him. His Majesty wants him to get married right in the palace, and all expenses for this event will be borne by the imperial family. The brunette then snatches the letter from the prince's hands, and then claims that it seems he was awarded the privilege of disobeying the emperor's orders in exchange for finding a moonlit clearing for his family. But the young man with green hair then claims that such an offer will not be refused, and besides, if they do not get married, then the Hassel family will. He will continue to behave shamelessly as well. The main character then screams with her shoulder, "They are here," and the prince replies that it seems her family is angry with her because they are behaving so strangely. High society still cannot believe that Mr. Knox has a fiancée, but it seems that Viscount Hassel does not care, because he is used by his position and trumpets everyone that their house is under the protection of the Iltern family. The main character then asks what they are talking about. And the Marquis then claims that this man is deliberately causing a stir by saying that he gave his beloved daughter in marriage. Although relatives are required to spend a lot of money on preparations for the wedding, the young woman with weak hair continues her master's speech and claims that he said that he didn't need it, and they took advantage of the moment. And apparently, I am attracting attention to myself using the position of the ill-turned family. The guy then sighs and says that greed has never done anyone any honor. And they thought that if Mr. Knox was a recluse, then he will not know what rumors are circulating about him among the aristocracy. The main character then says that these people are still trying to achieve something after everything she has done. The girl had no idea that they were capable of such a thing and thinks what kind of nonsense they are talking about and calling them their beloved daughter. But all they constantly wanted from her was a prediction, and this feigned love is very annoying. The Marquis then turns to Lunacia and says that she has nothing to worry about because he will personally deal with them. The young lady then claims that she wanted to be useful to Mr. Knox, but in the end, they bring him nothing but trouble. His Highness then says that if they decide to get married, the bride's family must be present, so it is necessary to show at the ceremony that the lady is sleepwalking. She cut off all ties with her family, and that Mr. Knox is not going to cover the Hassel family forever, and if they have a wedding in the palace, their family will simply be beside themselves with rage. The boy with blue hair then replies that this is a good idea, and they still have to teach them a lesson. And he also thinks that Lady Lunacia's ex-fiancé will also arrive at the ceremony. And the prince then replies that if that's the case, My Ass Willow will begin there, and he can't wait. The young lady then realizes that the prince has learned everything about her and starting her disgusting relationship with her family, ending up with a divorce from Alaudi's son. Therefore, you really need to be very careful with him. The guy is now asking if they will agree to hold the ceremony in the royal palace. The Marquis then says how much of a hassle this is, but claims that he thinks they should agree. However, he says that if Lunacia does not want to see her family or Mr. Alaudi, then they will find another way to shut them up. The girl then realizes that she really does not want to see them, but now she answers no and claims that she agrees with His Highness. After all, despite the fact that she has severed all her ties with the past, she is ready to meet him again face to face. The guy then laughs and says what a wonderful answer this is, so he thinks that the ceremony will go off with a bang. Then he claims that he will discuss all the nuances with his father and tell her the expected date. After which, the prince kisses the young lady's hand and asks Lady Lunacia to take care of his idiot friend. However, the Marquis at the same moment looks at him with a furious look and says that the guy seemed to be planning to get the hell out of there. But the young man with green hair then says what an evil friend his friend is. Then he heads to the exit and waves one last time. The Marquis then puts his hand on his forehead and sighs. And the main character at this time realizes that she hasn't seen her parents for a long time, but she can't be more helpful from using the gift. She is gradually losing her sight and has already begun to lose her taste, so the girl doesn't understand. They'll think, did they even for a second how much pain they caused her? The girl then understands that she does not want to reveal the truth to them and is sure that she will not receive even a drop of compassion from them. But very soon, she and the gentleman will get married, and this is what is important now. The young lady's younger sister is in her mansion at this time and realizes that she loves her family. After all, Daddy and Mommy always spoil her and Sister Rosalind and Brother Soleil, always so kind to her. Well, the girl then understands that more than anyone else in the world she loves her sister Lunacia because the girl has a special gift of divination, and no matter what she asks of her, she unquestioningly does it, only now everything has changed. As the young lady heads down the corridor, she hears her father screaming if they have really received an invitation to the wedding ceremony of Lunacia and the Marquis of Iltern, and he doesn't appear in high society. The young lady's mother then turns to her husband and asks Togo to calm down, and the girl watches all this and understands that Daddy is angry again, and he has become like this since little sister Lunacia left their house. The girl misses her so much, and without her gift, life has become much harder than before. Well, most of all, she misses that gentleman. The young lady's father at this time thinks that if they appear at the wedding, they will only show everyone that they are happy about this engagement, and that Lunacia is no longer part of their family. After the wedding, she will join the Iltern family, and they will no longer be able to hide behind the name of the Marquis. The young lady's mother then asked her not to do this, that is, not to use the name of the Marquis in high society, because it was too reckless. Well, the man then screams at her to shut up. The woman doesn't know a damn thing about this. Thanks to the name of the Marquis, he thought that he could attract the attention of influential investors. So now he claims that they must somehow stop this madness. The young lady's younger sister then wonders if there will be an engagement there, and understands that if she comes there, she is sure that she will be able to meet the Marquis again. After all, he chose his sister as his bride only because of the gift, but if he meets her in all her charm, then she will definitely fall in love. And now the baby turns to her mommy and daddy. Then she asks to let her go to her sister Lunatia's engagement party. The Marquis at this time turns to the young lady and says that they should start preparing for the ceremony. And the young man with blue hair claims that first of all he suggests looking for a dress for the bride, and it is necessary to choose not only an outfit, but also jewelry and shoes, because cutie Lunatia should shine at this moment. The main character then asks what they are talking about and claims that she doesn't think it's necessary. And the servant then turns to Mr. Knox and asks, maybe the two of them should go out into the city to do some shopping. The brunette then says that if Lunatia doesn't mind, until tomorrow he would like to go with her, just the two of them, and the young lady then gets a little excited and asks if Mr. Knox is sure that he wants to go. After all, the city is so crowded and he doesn't like to appear in public. The guy then replies that he doesn't care, and if the girl is only worried about it, then she shouldn't. A young man with blue hair at this time turns to the gentleman and says that he should practice inviting ladies for a walk because this is nowhere no good. However, the Marquis then turns around and looks at the guy furiously and then says that in any case, he would like to take a walk with Lunatia. The main character is not embarrassed after this, and the Marquis asks if she will keep him company. The girl understands that she will go out with Mr. Knox for the first time and thinks about what she should wear and how to put her hair up. This is so exciting, and the girl is looking forward to tomorrow. The next day, she finally finds herself in the city and says how beautiful it is. After an hour's carriage ride, they arrived at the spot. The girl also looks at the city and thinks that it is so quiet, but she thought that on the contrary it would be very lively there. The brunette then claims that he hasn't been there for a long time, and now his family's residence in the city is managed by his younger brother, so people won't be too surprised to see him there. The main character then understands that Mr. Knox has a younger brother, but unlike her sisters and brother, he always spoke well of him. And the girl wonders how close they are. The guy at this time extends his hand and says that before they go to the store, let her give him her hand. The main character is a little surprised by this and asks what he's talking about. And the Marquis then replies that she can't see well with her right eye and can easily get lost in the crowd, so he wouldn't want her to get hurt, so it would be much safer. The young lady then says that he is right and thinks that she is so embarrassed by his behavior, but this only shows how Mr. Knox cares for her. One of the merchants at this time tells the sweet couple to come there. Then he asks if they would like fresh apples, because this year they ripen surprisingly tasty, after which he holds out an apple and asks to try it. The young lady then takes the apple, but when she takes a bite, who understands that she no longer feels the taste. But the young lady also understands that Mr. Knox cannot be made to understand this. Therefore, with a smile on her face, she says that it is so delicious. But the guy then takes her hand and tells her to follow him. The young lady is then surprised, and the merchant also asks where they are going. But the Marquis then leads the young lady into an alley, after which he presses her against the wall, and the girl then asks what happened. Luna doesn't understand why he was so angry. And the Marquis then claims that he can easily understand when she is lying, and hates it when people do that. The girl then claims that she doesn't understand what he's talking about, but the guy tells her to stop lying because he sees right through her. The girl then asks what it means to be disingenuous, and the guy claims that when she tried the apple, her reaction was too unnatural. And in fact, this apple is sour because he made an agreement with the shopkeeper, and it turns out that the girl intends to lie to him. The young lady then lets go of the apple from her hands and thinks how she can justify herself and whether she should tell the guy that she will soon lose all her 5 senses, and also that she is already completely blind in one eye and has practically no sense of taste. Well, the young lady understands that she didn't feel anything when she took a bite of that apple. However, if she tells him everything now, Who knows how the situation will change because they can send her back to her parents' house and only lock her up and use her abilities. But the girl is not satisfied with any of these options because no one has ever cared about her like that before. The Marquis sighs after this and claims that from the very beginning he suspected that she had secrets and still chose her as his bride. So now he tells the girl to answer his question and asks why she wants him to plunge her into eternal sleep in future. The young lady doesn't even know how to answer this. But at this time, someone turns to the guy and asks if this is his older brother. The Marquis then turns around and sees his younger brother. The boy then says that he is conducting an inspection there. This guy is the younger brother of House Knox, named Sook. And the guy claims that he did not expect to meet a marriage in the place and was so surprised when he noticed him at that shop. The main character then thinks if this is Mr. Knox's brother, but they don't look alike at all, and the younger one is so cute. Sook then says that this girl must be, and the young lady then asks to let her introduce herself. Then she claims that her name is Lunacia Hassel, and she says that it's a pity that their meeting is taking place in such an inappropriate place, but this time she is like Mr. Knox's fiancé. However, the guy then doesn't let the young lady finish and asks her not to apologize because it was he who got into the conversation and didn't even really greet her. After which, the guy doesn't say that his name is Sook Knox, and he is incredibly happy to meet her. The main character then thinks how cute this guy is, and he looks like a little squirrel that Soleil once caught in the forest. The guy then claims that when he heard that the guy had found a bride, he was so surprised. After which he turns to Lunacia and says that she will not believe how much he wanted to meet her. The girl then replies that she too, and the Marquis then turns to her and asks if they have finished exchanging greetings, because then they can go. The main character then thinks what he is talking about and whether the guy really doesn't want to communicate with his brother so much, because in comparison with Soleil, he is much nicer and more polite. Knox also tells Sook to hurry up and leave the alley because it is harmful for him to be there. The guy then replies that he is completely fine and they haven't seen each other for so long, so he just wanted to talk with his brother longer. After all, he doesn't show up at home at all. And the guy asks if the search for the lunar clearing near that mansion is still going on. The Marquis then replies that this is His Majesty's order, and his brother claims that this is just nonsense, and they sent him for a mythical plant that may not exist, and all for the sake of making a gift to the Empress. The main character then understands that this is true, and it seemed to her that the search for stones from the lunar glade was the desire of the Empress herself, but apparently everything is not so. The Marquis's younger brother then asks if there shouldn't be another reason for all this, and Knox replies that even if she is, it doesn't concern the guy in any way, and when the young man bucks, it still does. After all, he is waiting for his brother to finish this task as soon as possible so that he can return everything to him by right. After all, he is not capable of leading people. The Marquis then asks if it is true because he was thinking of giving him the place of head of the house. And Mother would like this. Knox's younger brother then screams that this is not so. But after that, he immediately starts coughing heavily, and the young lady runs up to him and then asks if he is okay. The main thing is wondering if he is in poor health. And the Marquis then turns to his younger brother and advises him to rather use beige air. From the way they come out of the alley, the guy can finally catch his breath. But the main character suddenly sees her sister in the crowd and wonders if it was just Rosalind. But the girl still doesn't understand why she's here, and it must have been her imagination. The main character then turns back to the Marquis's brother and pats him on the back, telling him to take a slow breath. The brunette at this time turns to his younger brother and says that he did not come alone, after which he asks where his guards are and whether his sick bride is really not with him. Well, then someone screams, "Who did this guy call violent?" This turns out to be the same bride of the Marquis's younger brother. Sook then turns to Ruby, and the girl then screams that she's had enough and asks if they have any idea how excited she was when he suddenly ran away. And the girl also says that Lord Sook in his position should take more care of his health. The guy then agrees and apologizes, and the girl then turns to the lady with purple hair and tells her to hurry up and let go of the Lord's hand. The main character then agrees, and Sook says that Ruby should not speak to her in such a tone because this is his brother's fiancé, and she was just worried about him. But then the guy starts coughing again, and the girl then says that they should go and return to the carriage and then take the medicine. After which she turns to Knox and says that about him if he so wants to wander through the dark forest until the end of the day in search of moongrass, then the flag is in his hands. But the guy just got a bride. And someday her and the Lord's child will become the heir to the house of Iltern, so let him remember her word. The brunette then says that she should do as she pleases, after which the girl turns around and leaves. The main character then claims that it was like a hurricane swept through there, and Knox. Then he claims that this impudent lady is the bride of his younger brother and the only daughter of the Marquis of Fanday. The young lady then thinks about Marquise Fonda and realizes that as far as she remembers, his wife is a central figure in secular society, and her mother was desperately trying to establish a relationship with her. Well, she believes that the daughter adopted a strong-willed character from her parent. The Marquis at this time says that anyway, it's time for them because they have already spent so much time and still haven't bought anything. The girl then answers that yes, after which she takes her future husband by the hand and realizes that in the end she managed to hide her secret, but rather Mr. Knox allowed her to do it. And she herself asked him to plunge her into eternal sleep and believes that it would be dishonest on her part to hide the reason from him. Therefore, the girl thinks that when the engagement takes place, she will trust him with all her secrets, be at the price of her strength and the loss of all feelings. Well, the girl understands that she will do it later. Now they enter one of the shops, and the guy greets them in one of the branches of the Mirage jewelry store, recognized as the best in the empire. The guy also claims that their products are in no way inferior in quality to the main store, and if they are interested in something specific, then they should feel free to contact him. The Marquis then tells the guy to pick out decorations that will look good on this food, and they need several sets. The main character then asks in surprise what Mr. Knox is talking about because they just recently ordered a bunch of dresses and a tailor. Therefore, she doesn't need so many clothes and accessories. And then the guy asks if it's true. Then he says that it's surprising, but he likes dressing up Lunacia. And the girl is already embarrassed by this, and the store employee at this time asks for forgiveness for the wait. And when he brings up the jewelry, he says that they were used only first-class gems. The main character looking at them says that they are all wonderful. And the guy then says that this is exactly the case, because their store guarantees high quality of all jewelry products, which is why they are the best in the empire. The main character then thinks that if we talk about other stores, she saw someone who looked like her older sister, and maybe it really was her. At this time, in the middle of the street is another jewelry store named Rosario. A lady with blonde hair rushes in, and the worker then says that he hopes the owner is in good health, and he heard that she went to the Mirage to study her competitor better, and now that she has returned. But the girl then looks at him furiously and tells him to remain silent if he has nothing to say because she is not in the mood. And their store is full of customers, and they are also in no way inferior to the main department of the store. After which the girl says that the employee should now tell her what it is, and according to the reports of his store sales have fallen sharply this month, so the girl asks if he has any justification for this. But the guy then only claims that he followed the owner's instructions, and the girl then asks if he wants to say that it is her fault. After which the worker bows and asks to forgive him, and Rosalind understands that Lunacia has left and all the problems are now due to the fact that she refused to fulfill her duty to her family. So it's very annoying. Now the lady with blonde hair only furiously clutches the letter and then says that this is enough for today, the employee is fired. The guy then in shock asks how and asks to wait, after which he begs not to fire him. But the girl doesn't even pay attention to this and understands that if this continues, her store will be ruins. But she dreamed of how she would overthrow the Mirage in front of her and become the owner of the best jewelry house in the empire. The girl then takes one of the documents in her hands and realizes that she has long noticed this ghostly plant, and if she finds the gem fruits that this herb produces, then the sales of her stores will skyrocket. Therefore now the girl claims that the moongrass will be hers. The young lady's maid at this time only admires the fact that the girl is wearing different outfits. And Sierra says that the lady is wonderful in everything, and then asks what they should do and what dress she will choose for the engagement banquets, because today she should be the main character of the evening. The young lady then tells Sierra to calm down a little, and the maid then replies that it's definitely time to take a break, so if the lady is tired, then she can take off her dress for now, because they still have a lot to try on. After which Sierra runs out of the room, and says that she's going to go make some tea, and the young lady thinks how much enthusiasm this girl has. The young lady also understands that she cannot get her dress dirty, so she will take it off for a while. And looking at all these outfits and accessories, she thinks that they are priceless for her because she was the only one in the Hassel family who practically didn't buy new things, and the young lady remembers how the guy said that it's amazing, but he likes to dress her up. And now the girl thinks that this is still too much. Well, then someone comes into the room, and the main character wonders if Sierra has already returned. But then the young lady sees that this is not a maid at all. And after this, the Marquis became very embarrassed and asked why Mr. Knox came. Well, at that very moment, she turns around and screams in embarrassment. The guy then apologizes and says that he forgot to knock, and he himself understands that he should have already gotten used to the ruby of a woman's body. Well, now he says a little embarrassedly that he will turn away and asks if it's better for him to go out. The girl screams that this will do. And the brunette then claims that he noticed that there was a birthmark on her chest that looked like a clock, and she asks if it appeared because of her strength. The main character then replies that yes, and this mark appears on those who have the gift of divination. The Marquis then says that it must have been difficult for her with such power, especially considering her family. And the girl then replies that this is true, and initially she was just an addition to her brother heir and was not considered anything. But thanks to this power, her family finally began to pay attention to her, and at first she was happy, but they treated her just as a convenient tool. Hello, that's the way they are, people. The guy then asks if she was mistaken for an instrument, and then claims that this is a perfect comparison. After which, the Marquis also indicates that the girl should sit down next to him, and then the young lady does so. And the brunette then says that his mother treated him the same way. The girl is then a little surprised, but at the same moment, the maid bursts into the room and asks the lady to forgive her for being late, and also says that her tea is ready. But the maid, when she sees her mistress sitting in almost nothing but her underwear and the Marquis sitting next to her, comes into shock. The girl immediately kicks out the gentleman and asks what he's doing there because he's not allowed to go there, and even if he's already been a couple with the girl at least 10 times. But even they first need to go through a certain procedure, so she asks to do without these nightly deeds of his. The guy then says in shock that she misunderstood, but the maid then screams that she will defend the mistress's honor, after which he escorts the gentleman out and closes the door. And the guy then thinks that he's actually the boss there. But then he sighs and realizes that he almost said too much, and he wonders if he has become too attached to the person, which asks to be plunged into eternal sleep. A little time later, the young lady is already in the imperial palace and realizes that for the first time, there she believes he is a very majestic and famous aristocrats and also representatives of royal blood. They are there and everyone is watching them. In the hall, you can also hear gossip that this is a guy from the family of Marquis Iltern nicknamed the Moon Eater, and he is a hero of the last war. Well, just think about it. There are those terrible rumors about him, however the guy is handsome, and one of the women says that she saw his younger brother in social circles from time to time, but he is on a completely different level. The guys then also gossip and ask if the girl next to him is the daughter of Viscount Hassel. But her father did not hesitate to talk at every corner about the fact that his daughter caught the Marquise in her net, but she is not at all like her sisters and brother. The main character then thinks that they didn't even bother to discuss her family, and the girl wonders if any of them are in the hall now. The brunette at this time turns to Lunacia and says that first they will approach Jendal. After all, he is running the show this night, and it looks like the Emperor and Empress decided to come only towards the end of the evening. The main character then agrees. But suddenly someone screams her name, and when the girl turns around, she immediately looks at this person with contempt. After all, it turns out to be Rondell. Others from the Hassel family are also at the ball, and Soleil then says that Sister Luna has not arrived yet. And the youngest of the family then claims that the Marquise Ilterna is also nowhere to be found. And did the heroes of the occasion really decide to be late? After which the baby turns to her brother and asks if she looks cute today. The guy then sighs and says that she is asking this again, and since the very morning she has been asking the same question. But the girl then screams that it's because it's a special night, and she wants to be incredibly sweet. The guy understands that Rosalind's mother and sister did not come, and the father bows to everyone, and the guy is now a nanny for Cynthia. The guy also understands that months have passed since their last meeting with their sister Luna, but he still doesn't understand why the girl wasn't happy with it before, because they were a loving family and lived in an idyll, and she also had a wonderful fiancé, Rondell. The girl now looks at her ex-fiancé and realizes that she did not think that she would meet him before meeting her family. The guy says that he and Luna haven't seen each other for a long time, and he asks if it seems to him that she has become more beautiful. And she put on this whole show for him. Well, he claims that this time he forgives her, so let her think again. However, the main character then asks what it means for her sake and who she should forgive. And also, what is he talking about? But the guy then gets shocked and says, what? Luna still loves him. After which, the guy also comes up to her and asserts in her ear that he can tell everyone about her strength. The girl then thinks, is he really threatening her? And this is in return for the fact that he used her for so many years. So the young lady thinks how glad she is that she didn't marry him. After which, she and the Marquis exchange glances and then smile. The guy is then very happy and says that Luna has finally realized her mistake. However, the young lady then only says that she is glad to see him today and thanks him for being able to take the time to devote the banquet on the occasion of her engagement to Mr. Knox. The guy then does not understand what Luna is talking about, and the young lady claims that the engagement to him was officially canceled and everything was within the law, so she does not intend to maintain any relationship with him in the future. The guy then screams in shock, what is she talking about, and then claims that she wanted it herself. But after that, the Marquis approaches Rondell and says that it seems the guy has gained the courage to threaten his wife. After which, he says that he should just try to mess things up and he will not vouch for the safety of his house. But first of all, the power transmitted in the Hassel house is perceived in society as a dubious thing. Therefore, Knox asks if anyone will believe the guy's stories, and they are going to kick him out of the second division for a number of mistakes. After this, the guy in shock asks how he knows about this, and the Marquis claims that from now on until the end of his days, he will be haunted by only failures. Therefore, if he approaches his wife again, then let him not expect mercy. After which, the Marquis heads back to the moon and says that he just wasted his time. After which, the girl replies that he is right about this, and Rondell still cannot calm down, so he screams for them to wait. And when the young lady turns around asking what else, the guy screams that this is all wrong. And Luna had to marry him because then his future would be ideal, after which the guy bites his lip. And then he points to the Marquis claiming that he is challenging him to a duel. The guy then asks if he is dueling, but the main character at this time turns to her ex-husband and asks what he is talking about. The guy only claims that according to imperial law, he can challenge a knight to a duel at any time and he has a sword, so let him take the fight and fight honestly. The young lady then turns to the Marquis and says that he is not obliged to agree because this is such an unceremonious act. Well then, she already sees that her future husband is standing in front of Rondell. The man then asks if the guy wants a fair fight and claims that it looks like he's just talking and is much too much, and then asks if he decided to go to extreme measures when he was backed into a corner, but he also claims to honor his bravery and accepts the challenge. Luna then screams, asking Togo to wait, and claims that there is no need for this. But the guy just waves his hand and says that Luna should move away because he was expecting something like this. But suddenly someone in the hall starts clapping and it turns out to be His Highness. He says that he overheard their conversation, after which the young lady says that this is Prince Gendel. The guy then just says how funny it is because all the most interesting things are happening around his best friend and Lady Lunacia. After which the prince says that a duel is a good idea. And this is much more interesting than a simple score. The brunette then turns to the prince and says that he does not change. Rondell then turns to His Highness and asks for his consent to this duel. After all, if he wins, he wants to once again become Lady Lunacia's fiancé. The young man with green hair then asks if he wants the fight to be officially approved, because if so, it's good, and as a member of the royal family, he gives the go-ahead. The main character then, in shock, asks what he is talking about His Highness at this time, turning to Knox, and he asks what his conditions are. The guy then tells him to do as he knows, but if Rondell loses, then he should no longer dare to approach Lunacia, after which the prince agrees. And clapping his hands, he asks for guests and their attention. After all, it happened because of Lady Lunacia, who was present there. The two men are about to duel, and the guy asks why this isn't a scene from an opera. On the one hand, they have a knight and an ex-fiancé, and on the other, a man who was once even called the Holy Sword. And not everyone is lucky enough to witness this spectacle. People in the hall immediately begin to whisper and say that who would have thought that a duel would happen at the engagement? Is this event organized by the prince? Another guy claims that there will be interesting entertainment and what should be expected from His Highness, because the prince's way of thinking has always been progressive, so they can't wait. The main character watching all this understands that they are so looking forward to this sudden duel, and if something goes wrong during the ball, it can create a lot of scandals around her and Mr. Knox. Therefore, Prince Gendal made a separate spectacle for them to have fun, and he helped them out a lot. The main character realizes that she has never seen Mr. Knox fight with swords, except for battles with forest creatures. But the girl understands that fighting a person is a completely different matter, and Rondell is a rotten bastard, but he is an active knight, and fencing is his strong point. Knox then turns to the young lady and asks, "What's the matter? Is she really worried about him?" The main character then tries to answer, but the guy then puts his hand on her head and claims that he will not lose to this brainless boy who doesn't even know what the battlefield is, and this is all nothing more than a farce. Therefore, let the gene figure it out on its own. The main character then says with a smile on her face that she will just believe in him and watch. And the guy then agrees and says that since it comes down to it, he asks if she will agree to one condition and then says that if he defeats this kid, then she will honestly tell about her secrets, and the main character then understands a little bit that she wanted to talk about the loss of her feelings immediately after this engagement. However, now she says that it's good, and they agreed, after which the guy asks if she promises, and then claims that now he has more motivation. After that, the two guys find themselves on the street, and everyone else is watching them. The prince claims that he is lucky that the moon is shining so brightly today, after which he turns to Lady Lunacia. And he claims that the Marquis the Moon Eater is conducting a duel under the full moon, and isn't this a wonderful show? And the girl replies that there is nothing wonderful there. After which one of the knights brings 2 swords and informs His Highness that everything is ready, after which the young man with green hair says that it is time to give the weapons to the duelists. And these 2 take swords in their hands. His Highness states that they will use training swords, and whoever kneels first is the loser. The main character then looks at her ex-husband and realizes that he seems to be serious. The guy then thinks that everything is fine and this guy is a war hero or not, but this is a long time ago. The young man also thinks about his chances of losing, and he understands that even if he relied slightly on the power of the moon, he was accepted into the 2nd division precisely because of his skills. And the guy understands that he is strong, so he just needs to defeat this guy and everything will return to normal. His Highness then raises his hand in preparation to begin the duel. Then he screams for them to start. And at the same moment, Rondell rushes forward and then launches a series of attacks, but the Marquis only jumps back. One of the observers says how curious it is because the son of Count Alaudi takes the initiative into his own hands, and the girl claims that at such a young age he was able to get into the 2nd division, and it's immediately clear why he has an innate talent for fencing. The main character then thinks how it is, and if everything goes well, it will continue to be bad. Therefore, the girl is a little worried, but His Highness sighs at this time and then says that Knox is the same as always, and he just wants to show off in front of his lady, the main character. When she asks what the prince is talking about, claims that if the Marquise puts this guy to bed right away, it will be too boring. And he understands this perfectly well. And Knox simply creates a show for everyone around him, realizing his superiority over the enemy. After which, the young lady asks if the guy wants to say that he is not fighting at full strength, and the prince replies that naturally this fight is more like the boys playing palace with sticks instead of swords. The girl then asks if he is talking about the game, and Gendal then claims that he will tell him in confidence that even he could defeat Mr. Alaudi. And if this was a serious fight, Knox would have ended it with one precise blow. But it seems that this guy greatly infuriated their imperturbable Marquis, and he wanted to teach him a valuable lesson. But even his steely patience will one day come to an end, and then someone falls to his knees, after which the young lady looks on in shock. After all, suddenly the Marquis put this guy down. And everyone in the hall then asks in shock what happened. One of the girls says that Mr. Knox knocked this young man to the ground with one blow. And Rondell, now sitting on the ground, says that this is impossible because he had to win. The brunette then claims that he is still young and does not see the difference between their abilities at all. But his defeat was obvious from the very beginning. After all, he would never lose to a young man who had not been on a real battlefield. And now he says that the guy, instead of running after Luna, should better train. The young man is then in complete shock and tells the brunettes not to forget about his promise, because he will never approach her again. His Highness then raises his hand and says that this is their winner, Mr. Knox Iltern. The ladies immediately admire and say that it was just an amazing fight, and one of the men says that it's not for nothing that he was called the Holy Ball of the Empire, because he defeated this guy so easily, and it's just amazing. The main character then runs up and thinks that she also wants to congratulate Mr. Knox on his victory. Well, at this time, someone runs up in front of her and it turns out to be Cynthia. The girl immediately approaches the Marquis and says that he was simply incredible, and she was constantly watching him. The girl then tries to be very nice and asks to be allowed to introduce herself, after which she claims that her name is Cynthia Hassel, and she is Lunatia's younger sister. But they already met once, and the girl asks if he remembers it was when he visited their house. But since then, she hasn't been able to get his image out of her head, and to be honest, but when Cynthia turns around, she sees that the guy is no longer there, and she screams in shock. What is it? The Marquis just approaches his future wife and asks if Lunatia saw how he defeated this guy. The main character then replies that yes, she saw everything from beginning to end. After which, she congratulates him on his victory and claims that he did a great job, after which he says that Cynthia wanted to talk to him, and the girl then turns to the Marquis. However, the guy replies that such a noisy young lady does not interest him at all. The main character then realizes in shock that she is the youngest daughter of their family. Cynthia charmed every man who just looked at her, and only one could resist her charm. Therefore, the young lady now smiles warmly, but the Marquis then approaches her and says that what is more important is whether she remembers their agreement. The girl then replies that yes, and repeats her words that if Mr. Knox wins the duel, then she undertakes to tell all her secrets and claims that she will tell him everything. A short time later, 2 guards guarding the gate think that there is noise inside the palace, and one of them turns to the other and then claims that this is an ordinary evening on the occasion of the grind, so he does not understand why there is such a fuss. But another says that there, after all, the Moon Eater himself found a bride, and this is a truly unique event. So tonight it was ordered to strengthen the security of the palace, but no one came to change the guard, and the guy asked if they overslept. But at this time, someone is already standing next to the non-breathing servant and claims that he has finally reached the palace. But it's just a little more, and he will be able to take revenge for the destruction of his country, so he will finish off that devil. Whoever dared to take the life of his father, he will take revenge with his own hands. The main character at this time claims that she will tell about this secret only in private and not there, and the guy then agrees, after which he claims that they will talk about it when they return to the mansion, and then asks if she will try to escape. The main character replies that no, and that this mansion has also become her home. The girl understands that she is not going to return to her parents and be a tool in their hands for the rest of her life. And now the young lady is thinking that if Cynthia came to the reception, who must be someone else from the Hazel family there. But at this time, His Highness approaches them and says that Knox put on a great show. After all, he killed the boy in 2 counts, and he didn't expect anything less from his best friend. But the Marquis then claims that he does not remember considering him his best friend, and the young man with green hair tells him not to be modest. But Lunatia fell in love with him again while watching their fight, and the main character is a little embarrassed after that. Well, he claims that you can say it this way. The guy just sighs after this, and His Highness claims that he actually came to ask Lunatia if he could steal Knox for a few words. After all, he would like to discuss in more detail the progress of the search for the lunar clearing. The girl then asks if he is talking about the moonlit glade about the Marquis, then wonders if the prince wants to say that he should discuss work with him at the party in honor of his own engagement. The green-haired young man replies that he always gets all the information from urine, and would like to chat with Knox personally, and he cannot miss such a great opportunity when he is within his reach. After this, the Marquis just gets angry, and the main character looking at his face understands that it directly says, "Leave me alone." The brunette then apologizes and says that Handel won't let go so easily, so he'll go away for a while. And the main character replies that she is not a child and she can be left alone for a while, so don't let him worry. The guy then agrees, and the young man with green hair says what a beautiful bride he has, and then they leave. And Luna then thinks that now that she is finally left alone, she can eat a little, but due to the loss of taste, her appetite also dropped sharply, and she lied to Sierra that she wanted to lose weight so that her evening dress would fit perfectly. But the girl only began to worry about her more when the main character is already heading to the table. Then her brother suddenly hugs her from behind, and the main character asks if this is Soleil. The guy then, with a smile on his face, says that he and his sister have not seen each other for a long time and asks how she is doing and if everything is fine. The girl replies that yes, and she hopes that everything is fine with him too. The young lady understands that even though this guy is her twin brother, they are completely different in character. But the girl is even glad that he does not change at all. The young man then turns to Luna and says that so much time has passed since her last visit. And the guy asks if the girl wants to return to them because the whole family is really waiting for her. And he too. The guy claims that he saw Mr. Knox's duel with Rondell, and he is so scary, so if the Marquis is keeping her in the mansion by force, then let the girl just say so. The main character then says that Soleil should listen because he is the one about Mr. Knox. However then, someone interrupts her and screams that here is his daughter, after which he states how long it's been since they've seen each other. The young lady then warily turns to her father, and he says how glad he is that their relationship with the Marquis is becoming stronger every day. But he also says let the girl not forget about her family because they are looking forward to visiting her. The young lady then understands that this man speaks loudly to attract attention and is trying to show everyone present what a caring father he is and that he misses his daughter, but only one thing can be read in his eyes. This is so that the girl does not dare to blurt out too much and also deceives her fiancé and returns home alive. However, the girl then realizes that she is no longer subordinate to the Hassel house and must put an end to their relationship with them. Luna now asks to allow her father to clarify and then claims that she is no longer part of the Hassel family. The man is very surprised by this, and Soleil then turns to Luna and asks what she is doing. The girl only claims that she will very soon become part of the Iltern family. Therefore, the connection with the Hassel family is no longer out of the question, and henceforth their family will not help the Hassel family. The man then becomes furious, and the main character claims that her fiancé has still been kind to them because they are her parents. But after the wedding, he will not support them. The young lady's father then asks in shock what she is talking about. Everyone in the room starts whispering and asking what they are talking about and whether Hassel was receiving support from the Iltern family. Another man then claims that this is the first time he has heard about this because if it were so, the Marquise's family would confirm it. After this, the man becomes even more tense, and the main game does not claim that they have finally met. Then she asks if her father could show her the document that they concluded with Mr. Knox on the occasion of their engagement. The man then says how obnoxious this girl is, and he hid behind the name of the Marquis to protect their family, so how can she be so ungrateful? But the girl then claims that she has already said and repeats again that they are no longer a family. The man then in shock asks what she is talking about, and the young lady claims that if he tries to raise his voice at her in secular society, it will be considered bad manners. So let him not disappoint her anymore. When the young lady finally goes out onto the balcony, she thinks how tired she is, but she is an honorary hostel of His Highness and will not be able to leave so easily, so she thinks that she will take a little rest and return to the guests. But then someone comes up behind her and asks her to listen. The girl then turns around and thinks who it is. But then she sees that it is Lord Sook, and the guy with a smile on his face claims that he is glad to meet Lady Lunacia again. He claims that there are so many guests in the hall, and it's stuffy, so he even felt dizzy. And he also asks if the lady would mind if he kept her company for a while. The girl then replies that, of course it is possible. And he understands that this is true and the Lord is in poor health. But the girl then asks if he really arrived for the evening alone. And how did his bride know she saw her mother, Countess Fonde, in the hall? The guy then claims that Ruby doesn't really like his older brother. That's why she didn't come to the banquet today, and also claimed that if something happened, her mother would look after him. The main character then smiles and says that this is what the guy is saying, that he was still able to persuade her, and at first the girl flatly refused, but then she said that as soon as she finished work she would join him, and that was the last thing she said before he left. The guy also claims that he is a little harmful at times, and the young lady then thinks in her mind whether it's really just a little bit. And the young man then claims that the first thing he wanted to say was Lady Lunatia. This is what maintains his alliance with his brother. The guy also claims that Knox has a rather difficult character, so he is glad that he found a person who could accept him as he is. And the guy had to go through a lot, so he wants him to find his happiness again. The young lady, when she asks what he's talking about, he's Knox's little brother. Then he claims that he will tell her, but let the girl just not say anything to his older brother, because he wants to tell her the secret of the House of Iltern. In fact, he and his brother were born from different mothers, and the woman who gave birth to his brother. He came as his mother's sister, to whom their father was officially engaged. However, he secretly loved her sister, and their romance led to the birth of Knox. And the father had little interest in his bride, but when his mother found out about everything, her anger knew no bounds. And the woman then desperately screamed, "Why did she deserve such humiliation?" After all, her own sister was pregnant by her own husband. Therefore, she screamed that she would not allow this child to be born. His mother's prayers were answered, and her sister fell into eternal sleep during childbirth. And in order to protect the honor of their house, his brother told everyone that they were children of the same parents, but his mother simply could not love him. From the moment the boy was born, everyone forgot about the existence of the eldest son. The main character then asks how this can happen, and the guy claims that in truth, his mother wanted him to inherit the position of head of the Iltern family. And the girl must know that the place of head goes to the eldest child, and besides, Suk was born with poor health. Therefore, the guy claims that his father was against him becoming his successor and chose the brothers. But the young lady then asks if the guy was offended by the fact that his father handed over the type to Mr. Knox. And the young man then replies that this is not surprising because the brother is the son of the woman whom his father loved with all his heart. However, he still feels indebted to his mother after all. Except for her father, they obey her will. While fulfilling her dream, the mother entered into an agreement with her father, who stipulated that the title of head of the Iltern clan would be inherited by the one who first has a child. And the main character then realizes that she remembers Ruby's words. She claimed that Mr. Knox had just got a bride, and that someday her and the Lord's child would become the heir to the House of Iltern. But the guy then says that this is not all, and by the will of his mother his brother went to war, and when he returned a hero from the battlefield. The young man was very happy and said that he was so happy that his brother had returned Knox, then said that they had not seen each other for a long time. And the young man then turned to his brother and then asked if everything was okay with him, but he needed to rest. But the guy's mother then said that he should not approach him, and Suk then asked what she was talking about. But the woman only said what a pity that this disgusting brat did not plunge into eternal sleep during the war. Luna is now in shock and asks how she could say such a thing. He just sighs and says that his mother always behaved like this with him and asks him to forgive her for this. And so the guy claims that he hopes Lady Lunatia will give birth to a child as soon as possible, and his brother will become the official head of the family in his place. The girl is then very embarrassed and in shock asks what he is talking about and whether she should give birth. But the young man then asks if she didn't plan to give birth to an heir in the near future. The main character then understands that this usually happens after a wedding because the newlyweds are thinking about having a child and everything would be fine. But in their case, given her future, she will not be able to give birth to a child for Mr. Knox. After all, she herself told him that he is not obliged to love her. Well, when a girl thinks about this, she doesn't understand why she feels pain. Suk then claims that their conversation went on for a long time, but he hopes that the girl will take care of his brother, and also claims that when he first saw her in the city with him, he noticed how much he had changed, and the young lady asked what changed means because she wouldn't understand. But she understands that until all her 5 feelings disappear, she wants to stay with Mr. Knox until the very end. At this time, the guy just turns around and says that he'll probably return to the hall, and the girl agrees. But when the young lady looks down from the balcony, she sees Cynthia there. After which she thinks what she is doing there all alone. Suk then asks Lady Lunatia if something is wrong. And the main character replies that she doesn't even think about whether she should ignore what she saw. Well, she understands that the girl never walked alone, and someone always looked after her. And usually it was Soleil. Now the young lady thanks Lord Suk for telling her a little about Mr. Knox, but claims that all she can do for him is to be there. After which the young man with a smile on his face tells her to believe because this is enough. After which he asks Lady Lunatia to become a real family for his brother. The young lady wants to say something else but still stops. And the guy then says that then he'll probably go. But at the same moment, her brother runs up to Luna and screams. The main character then asks what he is doing there because she thought that he was looking after Cynthia. The young man then cries out whether she saw her. After all, the girl threw a tantrum that she had lost her earring and forced her to look for it. And he was told to keep an eye on her, so his father will be furious if he finds out. The main character now understands what the girl was doing in the backyard all alone, and she was watching Mr. Knox's fight, so she apparently assumed that she had broken off her earring there. And now the lady with purple hair says that about Cynthia However, the girl doesn't have time to finish when someone else comes up to them and asks if it's the tomboy Soleil. The guy then screams out what the teacher is doing there, and the main character realizes that apparently this is his mentor from the Knightly Academy. The man then claims that he served with Mr. Iltern in the war, so of course he came to the evening in honor of his engagement. But more importantly, he claims that yesterday Soleil skipped the battle exam, and the guy then screams how he found out. And the man replies that it's nice that his family is there too, because it's worth meeting his father and telling the guy about his low academic performance lately. The young man then asks the teacher not to do this. And the teacher then asks if the guy also saw the battle of Mr. Iltern and Alaudie's son. And after all, the guy needs to look up to him. After which, he pulls the young man by the hand and says that he will retake him right there. The main character then asks for forgiveness and says that she is forced to leave the Lord because she recently saw her younger sister in the backyard, so she will go find her and return her to her father. The girl understands that Cynthia has always been a very capricious child, but Soleil always sat down to look after her, and only she sometimes managed to cope with the girl's character. But be that as it may, she is just a naughty child, and this time so be it, she will help Soleil with her. But Suk then turns to the young lady and asks, maybe he should go with her. Otherwise, walking alone in the night garden is a little dangerous. The girl then says that it belongs to the royal palace, so don't let the Lord worry because she will soon return to the guests. And if he gets into trouble again because of her, his fiancé will be angry. A short time later, the main character is already in the garden and asks where Cynthia is, after which the girl wonders if she is there, and maybe the baby has already found the earring and returned. The main character then sighs and thinks that although she has already gotten used to her blindness in her right eye, it is still alarming to go out somewhere at night without an escort. And besides, she had already lost the taste of hay. The girl then remembers the Lord's words about how the lady would become his brother's real family. Therefore, the main character remembers the guy and thinks that this is impossible because in 6 months she will lose almost all her feelings. But suddenly the young lady somehow sees her sitting behind a bush. Then he asks if there is anyone there, but when he sees this terrible picture, he asks the man lying on the floor if he is okay. However, when the girl turns the guy around, she sees that he is no longer breathing, and he gets very scared and then wonders if he has really fallen into eternal sleep, and this is the royal guard. Therefore, the main character thinks that Cynthia may be in danger. However then, someone approaches the girl from behind and turns around. He sees that it is Lord Suk the guy, then says that thank God he searched her. Because after the girl left, he noticed her younger sister because she ran past him. And it seems she was still able to find her missing item, but in the end she was scolded by her older brother for her sudden escape. The main character then realizes that thank God her sister is okay. And the guy at this time claims that as soon as he found out about everything, he decided to follow her into the garden, after which he says that the girl should not worry because Ruby will scold only him and not Lady Lunacia for such an act. The girl then says that no, he just came to tell her the news, and there is nothing to reprimand him for. Well, then someone comes up behind the young lady, and Suk, seeing this, is very surprised. But when the girl tries to turn around, she sees that the knife is already pressed against her throat, and this villain says that if she dares to move, she will plunge into eternal sleep. At this time, the prince talks with the Marquis and suggests getting straight to the point, after which he asks whether the guy even believes in the existence of the lunar clearing. And the Marquis claims that at least until he finds her, they will not know for sure whether she exists. The young man with green hair then just laughs and says that his best friend is as optimistic as always. But he has almost no time left, because if he does not find a clearing, then their empire may be on the verge of collapse. And the brunette then asks if the current situation is really so deplorable, and today is an important event. However, he did not see his parents at the party. The guy then claims that they have urgent matters to attend to, after which he takes his mug of tea and drinks it and then asks, "Did Knox tell Mrs. Lunacia about finding the lunar clearing?" The guy then replies that he told her that all this was for the sake of his fiancée, and the girl doesn't know the real reason. His Highness then says that's how it is, but then claims that it's nice, and it looks like the guy doesn't want to tell her the whole truth. Then he asks if the Marquis is afraid that people will find out about her true abilities. And after all, if Mrs. Lunacia is truly capable of seeing the future, then he would demand her direct participation. But the Marquis only remains silent in response to this, and His Highness then laughs and then claims that he is joking. And let his best friend not make such a face or ask if the guy misses his beloved bride. The Marquis then claims that if everything is fine, he will go, but Gendel then says that until he leaves, he will give him one piece of advice. He also claims that he is a hero of the last war, and also hid in the forest as a recluse completely alone in order to complete his mission. But after the battles, he still has many enemies, and now that he has a bride, they will try to harm him through Lady Lunacia. So His Highness tells Knox to be careful. The villain at this time asks the young lady if she is by chance the bride of that devil Knox Iltern, and the girl then asks who he is after, which the man claims that he is a survivor from the kingdom of Chevalon. The young lady then understands that this is a kingdom that declared war on them but was defeated, and these lands as the winner now belong to them. The guy then claims that his father was a soldier, but the devil took his life, and before his death, he cried praying to be allowed to go home to his family. But this monster plunged him into eternal sleep. And now the guy screams that he will repay him in kind, after which he will kill him with his own hands and take revenge for his family and his home. The main character then understands that after the war, people crave revenge more than ever, but they do not know everything that happened on the battlefield, and she is sure that everything was not as simple as he says. But it seems this guy is not going to listen, after which he only claims that he will take away the most valuable thing from this demon, and this is the life of his beloved bride. The bitch then screams for the guy to let the girl go now, because he is on the territory of the royal palace, and if they see him, they will immediately be plunged into eternal sleep. Well, the guy asks if he is Sock's little brother, and what kind of luck is this? Because as soon as he puts this girl into eternal sleep, the guy will follow her. And besides, he has nowhere else to return, and he came there for the sake of revenge, so his grave will be here. The main character only remembers how she said that if she becomes a burden for the Marquis, he will have the right to end her life, and the girl understands that this guy is full of determination. Well, she has a goal, and that is that until all her 5 senses disappear, she will remain next to Mr. Knox. And he won't allow someone like him. After which, the young lady sees Knox's brother immediately running to save her. And he will succeed. But at that very moment, the stranger will attack him and then take his life. The man now points his dagger at the young lady and screams that if he doesn't do anything, then how can Lord Sukdai touch him? Well, at this time, the guy is already running and screaming Lunacia's name. However, the girl then screams for him not to do this. Then he pushes the attacker away, and he takes the lord by the hand and then drags him along. The girl screams for someone to come to the rescue because the villain has entered the palace. Well, suddenly the girl hears how the guy is getting worse, after which he completely falls to the floor, and the young lady is shocked, screams his name. The guy then tries to catch his breath, and the main character says that he has lost his breath and asks what to do. The girl understands that it is strange that there is not a single guard nearby, and today so many people have gathered in the palace, but no one responded to their cries for help, and very few guests come to this part of the garden. Therefore, the girl understands that they need to run to the entrance to the hall, but now this is impossible. The guy then asks Lunacia to run, and the girl then asks in shock what he is talking about. After all, she can't leave him there. Well, the guy then claims that he will simply hide from him in the bushes and don't let it worry, because he can catch up with her, so let the girl hurry into the hall. The main character then thinks whether he is lying to her so that she will leave as soon as possible, after which she understands that she needs to see what will happen if she leaves him there. And the young lady once again uses her power, and then sees that if she runs away, the guy will end. And then Ruby will only look in horror at the lifeless body of her husband. Therefore now the main character realizes in shock that she has no strength left, but it's obvious that if she left the Lord there, he would fall into eternal sleep. And the girl understands that she cannot allow this, after which she claims that this guy will very soon find them, and she will distract him, and the guy must run. The young man then asks what she is talking about. The girl replies that he has a better chance of finding the entrance in the dark, so let him call for help. But the guy then tells Lady Lunacia to wait. However, the main character then turns to him and tells him not to be afraid because tonight no one else will die, and she will not allow this. Well, when the girl runs, she notices that this guy is sitting in the bushes. The guy then notices the girl and immediately jumps out and starts running after her. The main character then realizes that she is wondering if the Lord was able to get to the hall and call for help. After all, she can no longer run and she can no longer see with only one eye, and it's even harder for her to move in the dark. But suddenly the girl trips over a tree root and falls to the floor. At the same moment, this attacker comes up from behind and says, "What a playful girl she is," and she looks completely ordinary. But the guy then claims that she will become his first victim, and he will definitely take revenge on this devil. The girl then closes her eyes and prepares for the worst. But then she hears someone calling her, and he asks if it's Mr. Knox. The guy then repels the attacker's attack and says that he can win even with a training sword, after which he completely knocks the dagger out of his hands. And then it gets closer and closer to the attacker. Then she hits him in the stomach with the hilt of the sword, and the guy immediately falls. But the Marquis then tramples him with his foot. Then he asks if the guy walking around at night knows a woman who raised his hand, and he was lucky that it was an ordinary wooden ball. However, if he had a real one, the guy would have gone to heaven a long time ago. The attacker then screams that he is a real devil, but he immediately gets hit in the forehead with a sword and then loses consciousness. And at this time, the Marquis approaches Lunacia, and he apologizes for being late. Then he asks if she is injured. The main characters do not answer that everything is fine, but then ask how he found her. The Marquis then claims that her brother made a fuss about not being able to find her for some urgent conversation, and he had a bad feeling, so he went out into the garden, and there he already came across his younger brother. The Lord is approaching them at this time. Then he turns to Lady Lunacia and his brother. The girl then realizes that Lady Ruby is also there, but in her charge, it was she who discovered the Lord already lifeless. Now the woman turns to the main character and says that thanks to her, Lord Sook was able to escape and call for help. The guy then replies that this is true, and thanks to her, he was able to meet Ruby and Knox, and luckily she had medicine, so he immediately felt better. After which he claims that Lady Lunacia is very brave, and the girl then asks what he is talking about. And she replies that she didn't do anything like that, but she herself understands that she just saw a future that she wouldn't want in reality. Ruby then states that on her own behalf, she wants to express her sincere gratitude to her, after which she becomes a little embarrassed and looks away, thanks her for helping the Lord, and also claims that she wants to apologize for her disrespectful behavior earlier. Before Lady Lunacia, the main character then turns to Lady Ruby, and the Marquis at this time claims that the girl was worried about her psychological state and wanted to cheer her up a little in this way. But the girl then asks what he is saying, after which he screams for them to shut up and says how unbearable Knox is. The main character smiles after this and realizes that this time she managed to save a person's life thanks to her powers. Well, she understands that she is also glad that it was Mr. Knox who came to her aid, because as soon as she heard his voice, she immediately felt so calm, and she is so grateful to him. But suddenly, the young lady's head begins to split and she cringes in pain. The Marquis at this time claims that first they should call the guards, and they need to tie up the intruder and also send him to prison. But when he turns to the young lady, he sees that she is still writhing in pain. The main character then just falls to the floor and thinks how much it hurts her, as if someone is trying to tear out her ears. A little time later, the girl wakes up in her bed and wonders where she is, after which she realizes that this is her room. And she and Mr. Knox arrived at the palace on the occasion of their engagement, after which he fought a duel. And then they threatened her, so the girl remembers that a villain entered the palace. Well, the girl remembers that Mr. Knox saved her, but she does not understand what happened next. At this time, the maid enters the room. The main character asks Sierra if this is it. But after that, the girl only turns to the mistress with tears in her eyes and says something to her. But the young lady then asks what she is talking about and then claims that she doesn't understand anything. The maid continues to talk about the young lady changing after this, but claims that she cannot hear her at all, and then asks if she can speak louder. The girl then runs away and asks how, and turns to Mr. Knox. Luna then realizes that she lost her hearing and that's why it happened. What a whole evening. She predicted the future as many as 2 times, and even though she was ready for such an outcome. But the reality turned out to be much worse. And a little later, Mr. Knox runs into the room, after which they cry out whether she has woken up. However, the girl sits in the same position and looks out the window, after which the guy asks what happened. And when he grabs her hand, then the young lady turns around and greets Mr. Knox. The guy then looks at her in shock, and then he just hugs her tightly. The young lady then screams out what Mr. Knox is doing, and the guy then claims that thank God she finally woke up. And the girl then realizes that she can hear him, and it's probably because he's talking right next to her ear. The guy then claims that 2 weeks have passed since she fell unconscious in the royal garden. And the main character then asks if she really slept for so long. And the guy replies that he already thought that she would never wake up and thought that he lost her, so now he only hugs her tighter and claims that he offended her so much while plunging into eternal sleep, but he was not at all ready for her. The young lady then turns a little surprised to Mr. Knox, and the guy at this time only claims that he does not want to lose her. The girl then says that she is so happy that Mr. Knox's voice can be heard. And the guy then claims that, by the way, first she lost sight in her right eye, and then she began to hear worse, and now she asks in surprise how he knew. Well, the guy only claims that she didn't even turn around when he ran into the room with the tiny one, and she also stopped feeling taste, so the market asks if she really has strength. However, the main character then only puts his finger on the card and asks him to refrain from making further assumptions. After all, she promised him that she would tell him everything herself. But a little later, the young lady embarrassedly asks why they are sitting so close. And the guy then approaches her ear and says that this way, she will definitely be able to hear him. The girl then understands that she is worried about something completely different, and that is what Mr. Urine is. He misunderstood what was happening there, and just silently left with a mysterious smile. The Marquis at this time turns to the young lady and says that vision, hearing, and even taste. Is this all a price to pay for her powers? And the main character then replies that everything is true and understands that this is how she decided to tell Mr. Knox about all her secrets, starting with the loss of all 5 senses and ending with her inevitable future. That's why the guy now says that that's why she asked him to put her into eternal sleep, because she wasn't needed. And the girl then answers that everything is so. And the man then says that her family and ex-fiancé used her for their own purposes, and they really didn't notice what was happening to her. But then the guy says that it's obvious and then apologizes for such a stupid question. He claims that these people never cared about her. And the main character then replies that she just wanted to be loved. That's why she allowed them to take advantage of her, and that's why it's her fault. The Marquis then turns to Lunacia after asking if the loss of 5 senses cannot be reversed, and she only has 6 months of life left. And the girl replies that this is true, and she understands that she has finally opened up to at least someone. The young lady told about everything that was tormenting her body and soul, but she wondered what kind of reaction would come from Mr. Knox. After this, the guy just remains silent and then lets the young lady go, and he gets up from the sofa and then leaves and tells her to wait a little. But then the young lady asks what he is talking about, after which the brunette turns to Urine and insists that he come out because he knows that he is standing outside the door and eavesdropping. However, the young man with blue hair then says, "Why does the gentleman say this because he was just nearby because he suddenly needed help?" But the Marquis then claims that he does not care and says that he should bring the same thing to the expedition, after which the guy agrees and says that he listens and obeys. Knox then turns to Luna. That time she trusted him was the right time, and he should tell her his secrets too. For example, about what he managed to find out about the moongrass while she was unconscious. The young lady then asks if he will tell her the whole truth, but the guy then says that first he would like to raise an equally important topic. After all, while the girl was unconscious, research was carried out regarding the criminal who had entered the palace, and they interrogated the victims. But due to Luna's poor health, the case was suspended and the criminal is awaiting his sentence in prison. The main character then asks if she slowed down the progress of the investigation and then apologizes. Well, the Marquis then says that she shouldn't ask for forgiveness because whoever should have done it is him. After all, he put her in danger because of his position. The girl then turns to her future husband and asks Togo not to talk like that. She also tells Mr. Knox that they are now a family, and he is not to blame for anything because she believed that he would come and save her. However, the Marquis then claims that he does not want to lose her because of his past mistakes, after which the young lady did not hear this and asks if he said something. After all, even from such a distance she can't hear him well, but the guy then looks away and says that it's nothing, after which he offers to continue their conversation. He claims that the royal family took responsibility for keeping the criminal, and it was they who were to blame for allowing their home to be broken into. Gendal also sent the girl a personal letter of apology, and the young lady then asks if the prince really sent her a letter. But the brunette then says that she can just burn it and not even read it because he is sure that nothing useful is written there. But the young lady understands that she is interested in what is there. The guy claims that during the interrogation, an interesting detail was revealed. Someone helped the criminal get into the palace, and the main character then asks if the guy wants to say that the villain had an accomplice, and the young man replies that this is true, and not just an accomplice, but the one who knew about the reception on the occasion of their engagement. But the guy claims that whoever it was, he manipulated that guy by giving him the opportunity to take revenge on him. But the true goal was not he, but the criminal intended. Put the empress into eternal sleep, and the young lady then asks what he is talking about. The girl understands that the current ruler of the Sanras Empire is Michaela von Sanras. In the country, she is also known as the Divine Guardian. The woman is smart and resourceful and also understands not only etiquette and manners, but also the military craft. And thanks to her military tactics, they won the last war, and she is loved not only by aristocrats because the people are also crazy about her, but despite the many concubines and at the disposal of the current emperor, it was she who gave birth to his heir, and their strong feelings for each other give the empire strength and contribute to prosperity. But the main character then asks who might already benefit from immersion in the eternal sleep of the empress, and the guy answers that her wide influence on all spheres of the empire's activities. And many aristocrats did not like it, or at least this theory was expressed by Gandalf. The guy claimed that the attacker had allies, and while one made his way into the royal garden under the cover of darkness, another person was seen near his mother's bedroom. Judging by the story of the guards during the patrol, they noticed someone at the entrance to the empress's chambers. But at this time, his mother was not expecting guests, and apparently because of the commotion that began in the garden, he was able to escape without really doing anything. Yes? And in addition, during interrogation, it turned out that this boy knew the secret of the imperial family, and he knew that his mother was not well. But only those close to the royal family know about this, so the one who plunged into eternal sleep or the person who works in the palace. Either someone from the highest level knows that they are closely connected with the royal family, and the Marquis claims that whoever it is, he will take into account his suspicions and personally conduct an investigation. After which, the prince told Nox to find the lunar clearing as soon as possible. And the guy then replied that he was obeying. And the main character is now in shock, asking if Her Majesty is sick. And the Marquise replies that this is true, and it is not being advertised yet. But the Empress fell ill with a severe form of an incurable disease, and all the imperial family does is try to keep her alive. The main character then asks how this can be, and the guy claims that the assistant knew that the Empress was now in serious condition and decided to attempt to put her into eternal sleep when she is most vulnerable, because if she recovers, it will be much more difficult to get close to her. And if he manages to carry out his plan, then the Empress's immersion in eternal sleep can be easily disguised as death from an incurable disease, and perhaps even the Emperor's concubines may be involved in this. Because if the Empress immerses herself in eternal sleep, they will sit on the throne, and it will be easy to lead them even without sitting on the throne. And the main character now asks whether there is really no hope for Her Majesty's recovery, because if she plunges into eternal sleep, then their empire will be in a difficult state. And the guy then claims that this is why he was entrusted with the Search Lunar Glade. But the young lady is only surprised at this, and understands that Mr. Knox said that they were looking for her for the most beautiful gem of all, to present it as a gift to the Empress. The guy then claims that there is no gem in the moonlight. However, the flower petals that grow there have medicinal properties. And according to the scriptures, tea made from the petals of a flower from a lunar meadow can cure a person of all diseases. The young lady then asks about this petal tea, and the guy claims that the legend about the gem is just a trick. But in the stone manuscripts, there was a story about a flower that brings people back to life, and it is also spoken about in other legends of their empire. After which the young lady asks if this means that he was entrusted with searching for the lunar clearing in order to save the Empress. And the guy then answers that yes, and claims that this flower is the only hope for her recovery. After all, he not only cures diseases and brings people back to life, but is also able to give people lost sight and hearing. The main character is then surprised and asks what he is talking about, and the Marquis only turns to her and claims that he wants to save her from the inevitable future. Then she claims that she will find this flower and return all her lost feelings. The main character then asks if he will save her from the inevitable future, and the girl thinks whether the flower petals from the lunar meadow will really be able to return all her 5 senses to her. But she understands that the memoirs say that this process is irreversible. And the guy at this time replies that of course he has no guarantee that these flowers will be able to heal her, but he wants to take a risk and give her the happy future she deserves. And the young lady then thanks him for his kindness and then claims that in the name of their empire, for the sake of Her Majesty, and for the sake of her bright future, she wants to help him find the lunar clearing. The brunette then claims that if she wants it so much, then he agrees, says a lot so that the girl does not use her abilities too often and even asks her about it. After which the young lady agrees and says that in return she wants him to promise her something. Therefore, now the young lady claims that if they still cannot find the moonlit clearing or cast the flowers and do not blink to return her feelings to her again, then let the Marquis promise her that in this case he will plunge her into eternal sleep. The guy then thinks in shock how she can talk about this with a smile on her face, but then he only sadly looks away and agrees. The main character only smiles harder in response to this, and at this time, a young man with blue hair comes into the room and apologizes for the wait. He also shows a sign in his hands. And the brunette claims that this is what he told her about earlier. This stone tablet tells of a moonlit glade. The young lady then looks at this sign. Then he reads the words that are written there. But after this, the Marquis only comes into shock and asks if she can really read it. The girl then answers and claims that the memoirs of her ancestors are written in the same font. The young man with blue hair is then surprised and says that they spend whole weeks deciphering just one line and asks in the markets why don't they give the lady the opportunity. Lunacia decipher all the stone tablets they found. The girl then replies with a joyful smile that she will be happy to help them. And at this time, she herself thinks what kind of luck this is because she can be useful to the master even without her abilities. The young man with blue hair only smiles after this, and when he gets closer to the young lady, that claims that they are looking more and more like a married couple. And he will tell you in confidence that while Lady Lunacia was sleeping, the gentleman personally took care of her all these weeks, and she is so important to Mr. Knox. The girl then asks a little surprised what he is talking about. And the Marquis then turns to Urine and asks what he is whispering to Lunacia. However, the young man with blue hair then asked whether he really shouldn't be confidential with his beloved and all that Mr. Beach. The main character at this time thinks that if they manage to change fate, then will she be able to become a real wife for Mr. Knox. A week later, the girl is already sitting and deciphering the signs. She understands that most of them have already deciphered, but at this time someone turns to Mrs., and he tells her to distract herself for a while because they want to see her. However, the main character then does not react to this in any way. She does not even hear the maid. And Sierra then draws more air into her lungs, after which she screams that guests have come to the mistress, and the young lady even gets a little scared. After which she turns around from the maid and apologizes for not hearing the first time. Well, the maid then says that the mistress should not apologize because she understands that her body is affected by a rare disease that takes away all 5 senses from her, but she is happy to know that the gentleman can find medicine for her. The main character understands that everything is the same as in the case of Her Majesty because Mr. Knox told them only part of the truth about her and all the servants believe in her recovery. But now the main character asks who wanted to see her. And the maid then answers that they are waiting for the lady of the living room, so they quickly need to change her clothes. The main character then asks why she needs it, but Sierra immediately interrupts her and says that it's necessary, so they should go. Knox's younger brother and his wife are sitting in the living room, and the main character then comes into the room and apologizes for the wait. She also claims that she did not think that Lady Ruby and Sir Skoo would want to pay a visit. The guy then says that they haven't seen Lady Lunacia for a long time, and then asks how her health is. Ruby also claims that she had no desire to go to this outback, but came to her on an important matter. The main character then realizes that although she can hardly hear them, she can roughly understand what they are talking about, after which she asks why they personally came there. But at this time, the Marquis approaches Lunacia from behind and claims that the whole point is that Ruby personally wanted to give her something. However, then the girl screams for the Marquis to shut up, because she herself can tell Lady Lunacia why she came today. And after all, her mother fulfilled Nox's request, so let them take it already. The guy then picks up the box and hands it to Lunacia, claiming that he asked to make this item personally for her. The main character then takes the box in her hands. But when he opens it, he looks at this thing a little surprised and asks what it is. And the Marquis then leans towards her ear and whispers that this is a hearing aid, and this is a special device that will help her hear better at a distance, after which the young lady asks if such technologies really exist. Ruby then only says that they should not dare to flirt in front of the guests, but she, by the way, is still there. But the Marquis does not pay attention to her, after which he continues to torture and claims that there is a kingdom beyond the sea with which they have concluded a peace agreement. And in exchange for peace, they pledge to help each other, including sharing the latest technologies. And this device allows the hearing impaired to remain on an equal footing with other people. After which the main character asks really, but Ruby's mother, that is the Duchess of Fanday, did this for her. But she has many connections in the overseas kingdom, and the Marquis then claims that he personally wrote her a letter and asked her to find this device. Since he is the older brother of his son-in-law, the woman could not refuse. The main character then takes this device in her hands and says that the Marquis did such work for her sake. Ruby at this time claims that she doesn't know why they need this thing, but it cost a lot of money, so she will be with the girl and considers it her gratitude for saving her husband. At this time, Suk turns to Lunacia and claims that Ruby was still thinking about how to express her gratitude to her. Therefore, they will be happy if she accepts this gift from them. At this time, the Marquis just sighs and the main character has a smile on her face. She replies that of course she will accept him and thanks these two from the bottom of her heart. That same evening, looking out the window, the main character realizes that thanks to today's meeting, she feels as if she has become closer to Lady Ruby. And although she has a strong-willed character, she is a good girl at heart. And her fiancé, Sir Suk, is gentle and open to dialogue, so they complement each other perfectly. But in the meantime, the main character has almost finished her work on decoding, and now the girl also remembers that she should write a responsible letter to Soleil about her well-being. The young lady realizes that a lot of time has passed since she fell unconscious at the reception, and everyone present knew about this incident, and her family was no exception. But only Soleil wrote letters to her worried about her condition, so the girl understands that it is worth keeping in touch with him at least. And now he finishes writing this sheet with a smile on his face. Well then, the girl hears someone knocking on the door and realizes that she hasn't heard such a clear knock on the door for a long time. After which he tells the one who came to come in, and it turns out to be the Marquis. He asks if the girl can now hear even extraneous sounds. And she replies that yes, she hears everything very clearly, as if she had never lost her hearing at all. Lunacia actually needed this device, but he should still warn her that if she completely loses her hearing, this thing will not help her hear again. The main character then replies that she understands, and Nox then claims that while he is in search of the moonlight, all he can do for her is to fulfill her wish that she wrote in her diary. The main character then becomes embarrassed and asks if he still remembers about this diary, and the guy replies that of course he has already fulfilled one of her wishes. Therefore, he claims that if there is still something left that she would like to do, then he asks her to talk about it. He will try to fulfill everything. The main character is a little surprised after this and then claims that if he survives all these moments with her, she will be very grateful to him. And the guy is very embarrassed after this, but then he realizes that his face has turned red, and then he turns away Lunacia, then asks what happened. But the guy then replies that everything is fine and let her not worry about it. But before that, he claims that they should visit one person with her, and the young lady then asks who. And the guy replies that Her Majesty wishes to meet her outside the royal palace and personally apologize for the fact that she suffered from the attacker. The main character then asks in shock if this is really so, but in her thoughts she doesn't understand if the Empress really wants to meet her. Lunacia's father is sitting in his house with empty bottles of wine. His wife then turns to him and claims that her husband has been drinking without stopping for days, and at this rate his health will deteriorate. But the young lady's father then asks, what difference does it make? because everyone knows that they are no longer under the wing of the Iltern family, and having learned about his lies, even regular clients turned away from his family. All ties with Alaudi were destroyed, and Rosaline also left them without explanation, so their house fell. At this time, the maid comes into the room and apologizes, but tells the gentleman that a client has come to him. The man then asks who else it could be, but the maid does not have time to finish her sentence. How a man in a hat comes into the room and asks for forgiveness for coming to them without an invitation. Nicholas immediately jumps up from his seat and asks what Mr. How is he doing there. Well, the man then claims that he wants to offer them one deal and his customer will pay them generously if they agree, but this order is top secret. The young lady's father then asks what top secret means, and the customer then claims that everything is because this matter concerns the imperial family, after which he asks if they want to know more. The Empress at this time is in very bad condition, and the prince screams out whether his mother is really bad and whether he should call a doctor. The guy understands that it is an incurable disease that only a few suffer from. His mother's body was struck, and until now, no one has found a medicine that could save a person from a terrible fate, and their only chance to save her is the dam clearing from the legends, so the guy thinks what an irony this is. The Empress at this time tells her son that it's not worth it because the Iltern spouses will arrive today. The guy then replies that this is so, and they conveyed that it was a great honor for them to meet her. Well, the woman then claims that then she needs to get up, so let the guy call the hearing so that they can help her change clothes. However, the guy then asks if his mother understands that in her condition, one should not strain, and also says that the meeting can be held in her chambers. The woman then just smiles and says what a nice boy Gendal is, and she tells him not to worry because everything will be fine with her, because she must survive for the sake of His Majesty her son, and also for the sake of the entire kingdom. The main character at this time is in the carriage with her husband, and she, turning to Mr. Knox, asks whether he has communicated with Her Majesty personally before, and also what kind of person she is. The Marquis then replies that she is a strong woman with a kind heart, and she is very smart, and is also able to come to an agreement with anyone, so we can say that you adopted all the best features of Gendal from her. And the main character then understands this, but says that she was interested in finding out from him how Mr. Knox was able to make friends with Mr. Gendal, but the guy then replies that they are not friends. And then he says that in those days, he was not yet the head of the Iltern family and was not in the service of the Empire. The guy was studying at the Academy of the Knightly Order when he met him, and the best students of the academy were invited to train at the royal palace. And if they were already talking about this, then he arrived at this training session with Urin, after which the main character asks if Mr. Urin really studied with him. And the brunette then replies that this is not surprising, because he is the fourth son of one of the generals of the Empire. Including him and Urin, another 30 students arrived there. And while staying in the palace, he met a spy who wanted to attack the only son of the royal family, and he managed to neutralize him. Gendal then claimed that this was incredible, and asked how the guy knew that this particular man turned out to be a spy. The Marquis then replied that he had been acting suspiciously since he got to the palace, and he had come there for training and had not let his guard down for a second. And the prince then said with a smile on his face that this guy was a nice fellow. And then he said that he now understands what kind of future head of the Iltern family is. And then he said that he liked the guy. The prince also extended his hand and asserted that he was not interested in fame in terms of numbers, and that the future marquis was the most ordinary guy, which is why he wanted to be friends with a person like him. Now, the brunette claims that despite the fact that the prince was literally in danger, he offered him friendship as if nothing had happened, and the young lady then realizes that this is like him. The marquis says that if you think about it, he became friends with Urin at the same time. And then the two of them went to war, and Urin is the fourth son of a general in the imperial army, so in any case, he was not supposed to become the next head, so this eccentric followed him, and even after the war remained to serve him. The main character then claims that she did not even know that Mr. Knox, Mr. Urin, and Mr. Gendal had known each other for so long. The girl understands that Gendal's mother embodies all the best qualities of her son, and Mr. Knox takes 6 months to find the lunar clearing, so apparently Her Majesty has little time left. A short time later, the young lady is already getting out of the carriage, and when he looks around, he claims that it is incredibly beautiful there. After which the two move on and the girl realizes that they are in such a well-behaved and beautiful place. The estate was built specifically for the Empress, and according to Mr. Knox, His Highness built this estate for his wife so that she could relax in nature in peace and quiet. This act only proves the depth of the Emperor's feelings for his wife. A new assassin could be hiding there in a quiet place among the loyal subjects of the royal family. But then the Marquis suddenly turns to Lunacia and tells her to wait. The young lady then turns and asks what happened. But when he sees two more people in front of him, he is a little surprised. The brunette then claims that this woman is one of the Emperor's concubines, and the man is next to her. But at this time that man begins to speak, and he claims that he will not meet such guests in this place. He also states how unusual it is to encounter the reclusive Marquis at Her Majesty's estate. And the man asks if the guy has really come to meet her in person. The main character then realizes that she knows who he is and his name. Marquis Lautria, the most ancient ducal house of their empire, and they are on the same level of influence as Master Knox. And also, the Marquis Lautria and His Majesty are old friends, so everyone at court recognizes his status. And the girl now understands that if she thinks about it, she didn't see him among the guests at the engagement reception. But I'm sure that the Emperor included him on the list of invitees, so the girl thinks how strange it is. The Marquis at this time turns to this man and claims that he is glad to meet Mr. Lautria, and also says that everything is true, and they decided to pay a visit to Her Majesty. Lautria, then with a smile on her face, asks if they will pay a visit and is also interested in what issue. And the brunette then replies that during a reception in the palace, his bride was attacked, and Her Majesty wanted to personally apologize for this incident. The young lady understands that information about what happened that night was ultimately not taken outside the castle, and she's even glad that no one found out about this case. Otherwise, new rumors about Mr. Knox would have spread among the people. The man then with a smile on his face says that this is it, and asks if that's why the guy didn't arrive there alone. And the main character then comes forward and asks to be allowed to introduce herself. And then she claims that her name is Lunacia Hassel. One of the Emperor's concubines then asks Hassel if she is, and the girl then wonders if something is wrong. Well, the woman then replies that no and asks for forgiveness. The Marquis at this time asks what brought Mr. Lautria to Her Majesty's estate. And the man then replies that he wanted to meet with the Emperor and discuss political issues, but accidentally ran into Madame Rebien, and she confused the date of the tea party with Her Majesty, so she intended to return to the palace. And the main character then understands that the Empress's tea party with her concubines is a long-standing tradition that exists for the sake of maintaining trusting relationships, and such an event is held once a month, and all issues related to the concubines themselves and their relationship with the Emperor are discussed. Despite her health, Her Majesty still fulfills her duties. At this time, the man just turns around and says that he doesn't dare detain them any longer, and it's time for him to meet His Majesty. But when he turns around, the smile leaves his face. And Knox then tells Lunacia that they also need to go, and the girl agrees. After which they bow and say goodbye to Madame Rebien. However, the woman is then silent for a bit, and when they turn around, she tells them to wait. The main character then asks if something is wrong, and Madame Rebien then says that Lady Lunacia interested her. So she asks if the girl would like to attend the next tea party as her invited guest. The main character then does not understand what is happening, and why the woman suddenly decided to call her. And the young lady then realizes that she doesn't know what's on her mind. But she just bows and says that she is honored to accept the invitation from Madame Rebien, and she will gladly join her company. The woman then says that it's nice, and then says goodbye to Lady Lunacia. The Marquis then turns to his wife and says that he understands that it is difficult to refuse when she is so suddenly invited somewhere, but if he were in her place, he would refuse this offer. The main character then asks why, and the guy replies that Madame Rebien is the favorite among His Majesty's 3 concubines, and is also distinguished by her rude disposition and changeable mood. She has a rather strained relationship with the Empress, and he assumes that it was she who sent the assassins to the palace. The main character then wonders in shock if this is really so. And the guy at this time claims that if we talk about the Marquis Lautria, even though he supported the imperial family all his life, Gendal does not trust him. The only one from the imperial family who is in good standing is His Majesty. The young lady then understands how it all is, and she didn't even think that life in the palace could be so stressful. but she should think about them carefully, to accept Madame Rebien's invitation or not. However, the young lady realizes that she had already heard the woman's name once before from someone in the Hassel house. After this, the young lady and her husband are already under the doors of the living room, after which one of the servants reports that the Marquis Knox and his wife arrived to meet Her Majesty. He also greets Mr. Knox with their Lady Lunacia, after which he states that the Empress is already waiting for them in the room, so let them enter. After this, the main character enters the room with her husband, and they see the Empress there, who with a smile on her face claims that her name is Michaela von Lesanras, and also claims that she is glad to meet them, and the lady is able to see the future. The main character then thinks in shock what she is talking about, and understands that they did not tell Prince Gendel about her abilities, so she does not understand how Her Majesty knows about them. After this, the woman just smiles and says that she is joking. And the main character in shock thinks that such topics are not joked about. The Empress at this time claims that Gendal once told her a legend about their family, so she found a reason to make fun of them a little. The main character then thinks that the prince didn't tell her anything, and only Mr. Knox knows about her ability. The guy bows at this time and tells Her Majesty that it's a great pleasure for them to see her. Well, the woman then raises her hand and asks to omit these formalities, because she never liked this style of communication, and I would like to avoid him in their conversation. The main character then realizes that the principal is really very similar to her mother, after which he smiles, and at this time the woman rises from her seat and says that she invited them to personally offer her deepest apologies. Therefore, he asks them to sit down, after which everyone sits down at the table. And the woman then says that first she wants to sincerely apologize, because the royal family insisted that the evening on the occasion of their engagement be held in the palace. But their guards were absolutely not prepared for such a sudden attack, and this is entirely the fault of the royal family, so His Majesty also deeply regrets what happened. The main character then asks why God is it she, and claims that there is no need to apologize because none of the guests were hurt except the royal guards. The woman then replies that yes, she is also sad to hear about the victims in such a peaceful time, and as a queen, she will make every effort to ensure that this tragedy does not happen again. Well, the woman claims that looking for a traitor holed up inside the palace is much more dense than fighting soldiers on the battlefield. The young lady then thinks what it means that Her Majesty is aware that it was she who was the subject of the assassination attempt. But despite this, she is amazingly calm and confident in her own abilities, and will not even tell that she is suffering from an incurable disease. The woman smiles at this time and then turns to Knox, and she says that she also wants to thank him because he works every day to find medicine for her, and she also wants to point out that the rumors did not lie, and his wife is so kind and modest. The guy then thanks Her Majesty and claims that he is very proud of her, and he is pleased to hear her praise for his wife. The main character then becomes embarrassed and asks what he is talking about. The girl understands that Her Majesty is very generous, but to praise her so clearly is too much. The woman at this time just smiles and says that there is no need to thank her for the truth, but she is so happy that she was able to meet her today. After all, because of her condition, she cannot spend as much time in the company of anyone as before. The main character then turns to Her Majesty. Then she claims that she wants to have tea with her again someday and will look forward to that day. When they leave, the Marquis asks how it feels after meeting the Empress. The young lady then responds that she thought she would be much more restrained and stricter, but the obvious similarity immediately caught my eye. Between son and mother, the Marquis then claims that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and then says that it's time for them to go. And the girl replies that this is true because she still has not finished deciphering the stone tablets. But then he answers that no, and it's too early to go home, after which the young lady asks where they are going. And the guy then claims that he remembers that in her diary, it was written about the desire to take a walk in a beautiful place, but it is quite vague, and as she could notice, he spends most of his time at work. Therefore, I decided to ask Urin for advice and even forgive me, Lord at Gendal. So right now, they will go for a walk. The main character then asks in shock if they will really go now, but they still have a lot to do on the estate. And the guy replies that this place is not so far from there, and moreover, he wants to spend a little time in her company. Madame Rebienne is lying on her sofa at this time. Well then, someone comes from behind the door and says that a guest has arrived. The woman then just stretches out her leg and asks who it is this time, but the servant claims that she introduced herself as a jewelry supplier. And Madame Rebien then understands that it is Rosalind, so she says let her come in. The girl then enters the room and apologizes for the intrusion, but claims that she brought the most exquisite jewelry, especially for Madame Rebien. The woman then rises from her seat and asks what trinkets she will show this time because she hopes that they are worth her attention. And she said earlier that she likes the girl and her ambition amazes her. That's why she continues to buy her products. Rosalind then, with a smile on her face, thanks Madame Rebien and says that she is their most valuable client, which is why today she brought her the latest collectibles from their jewelry house. But before the demonstration, she would like to hear that story. The woman then asks if the girl in the moonlight is talking, and she didn't even think that such an adult lady believed in these fairy tales. But then she says that, oh well, so be it, she will tell everything she knows. The blonde then claims that when she talked to her about the moonlight, the woman only laughed at her, but now she became interested in her, and even decided to share her knowledge with her, so the girl asks why suddenly. And the woman then replies that she was inspired by her persistence, and she has nothing to lose by telling her about it. According to rumors in the lunar clearing, you can find the most beautiful stone that exists in the world. In ancient times, only selected court ladies received jewelry designed by him. The girl then replies that she heard about it, and if she still manages to find a lunar clearing, then she will make any product that Mrs. Rebien wants. The woman then asks if she can make any, then he tells the girl to make her a tiara. The blonde then asks why the tiara. After all, in their kingdom, only Her Majesty can wear a tiara and nothing more. But the woman then understands that only she is worthy of such decoration during the day. She went to Her Majesty convinced that today was the monthly tea party, but she was mistaken, and she as always came to her chambers to meet her in person. The Empress greeted her cordially in her usual manner, and they did not see each other for more than a month. That's why she noticed how much the woman had changed in appearance. After all, she has a thin face, bruises under her eyes, and chapped thin lips, so she looked simply terrible. They said goodbye to her, and on the way the woman met the Marquis of Loutrius. He told her that the Empress was terminally ill, and since he said so, she was inclined to believe him. Now, the woman asks Rosaline what it is and if she can cook hey tiara. And the girl then replies that everything is not so, and if a woman wants it that way, then of course she will do it. Madame Rebien then understands that as soon as the Empress leaves them, she will be the next contender for the throne, and for this occasion she should have an incredibly beautiful attribute of power. The lady with blonde hair then asks to be allowed to make it for Madame Rebien, and the woman then agrees, but claims that she heard that the Marquis Iltern lives in the forest where the moonlight is located. The girl then asks what about Togo, because this forest does not belong to anyone, and they have no reason to forbid her to look for or do anything in this forest. Madame Rebien, when she asks this way, then claims that she admires Rosalind's fearlessness, and then claims that today she met her little sister. The blonde then asks if the mistress is talking about Cynthia, and the woman then asks if she really has two sisters, and this girl looked like her age. But Rosaline then only says with disgust that it's Lunacia. The woman claims that she met the girl when she was returning home after a meeting with the Empress, and she invited her to the next tea party as her guest of honor, and so she now asks if Rosaline minds. And the girl then answers a little irritably that of course not, but she herself understands that that girl ruined their family and destroyed the business that she had been building for years. The woman now claims that she sees that she and her sister do not get along, and asks if the girl never wanted to put her in her place. The woman understands that the current Empress is supported by the House of Iltern, and after she falls into eternal sleep, she will support Mrs. Rebien, and the status of their family will become higher than it was before. The blonde now claims that she would like to show her where she belongs, and this is the duty of an older sister. After this, the woman only wants, and says that then she will help her with this, but let Rosalind not disappoint her. The main character at this time admires in shock because she is now in a field of flowers and claims what a wonderful place this is. The guy then replies that there was also a wonderful view of the forest from their estate, but Gendel and Urin told him to take her for a day walk, otherwise he's like a vampire who is afraid of white light, and Sierra supported their idea. Therefore now the guy turns to Lunacia and asks if this is the first time she has gone out for such a walk. The girl then claims that as a child, there was once a conversation that they needed to arrange an outing with the whole family, and they had already set a date, and also a place. But that day she fell ill due to frequent use of the gift. And her whole family decided to have fun without her, and only Soleil thought about her. And he brought flowers worth the corners. They always sat at the dinner table, and they often indulged in memories in which she had no place, and it was very painful for the girl to hear them every time. Garnet then claims that he has no fond memories of his family either. Therefore, he offers to come there again someday with Urine and the others. The young lady then answers with a smile on her face that this will make us happy, and understands that there are flower petals flying around, the calm sound of the wind and the warmth emanating from Mr. Knox. She wants to remember this wonderful moment even if she loses all 5 senses and the master will have to plunge her into eternal sleep. Well, she will fall into eternal sleep, remembering this moment with joy in her heart. Now, the main character asks where they are going now. And the guy then points his finger in one direction and claims that their next target is there. And when the main character sees her, she is surprised. The maid is at this time in the estate and is cleaning. She claims that Mr. Knox must be enjoying a walk with Ms. Lunacia right now, and she hopes they are doing well. Urine then turns to Sierra and says that even though she is Mr. Knox's maid, she seems really crazy about Lady Lunacia. The girl probably claims that she wishes her happiness, that's all. And after all, she is terminally ill, so the illness is gradually taking away all her 5 senses. But despite this, she continues to smile every day, and the lady is such a strong girl, and she also seems to not get along with her family at all, so she can partly understand her because she was the middle child in a large family. And the sick woman screams that the younger ones are always given concessions and the older ones are always forced to do all the work for them. After this, the guys just smile and say that the girl just found her sister through misfortune. But he understands that the situation in Lunacia's family is different from Sierra's domestic troubles. After all, it was because of them that the young lady was struck by an incurable disease, and if they could find the moon herb. At this time, the maid looks out the window and asks what the noise is on the street, and the guys answer that the soldiers recently returned from an expedition, and it seems that her lover took part in it. Therefore, he claims that maybe they managed to find the moongrass, and the guy asks if he should go ask them, and the girl claims that if Roberto is back then, she will go too. But when the two of them go out into the street, they are shocked to think what it is. At this time, a young lady is near a building and asks if this is a church. The guy replies that it has not been functioning for a long time, and Gendel said that they can spend time there and no one will disturb them. So he thought that he wanted to show her the place with which many of his memories are connected. The young lady then asks if he wants to say that this church is special to him. And the guy replies that if you think like that, then this is the only place for him that he can call special, and then asks if the girl wants to come in. And he opens the door to the church. The girl then looks around and says that the interior decoration is so well preserved, and it cannot be said that no one visits her anymore. The Marquis then claims that secret wedding ceremonies used to be held in this church, and there his father proposed to his real mother, at least that's what he told him as a child. The main character then asks in shock what he is talking about. And the guy then asks what it is because he is sure that Sook has already told her the story about his life and told her about her real mother. The main character then replies that this is so and apologizes to Mr. Knox because it was his secret. But the guy then replies that everything is in order, and sooner or later he would have revealed this secret to her anyway. And he himself had already decided that he was no longer going to hide anything from her. The girl then understands that Knox's mother plunged into the eternal sleep of nature, but the legitimate bride of the head of the family Iltern was the eldest sister of Knox's mother. A secret connection broke out between his father and mother from which the guy was born. The Marquis now claims that he does not approve of what his parents did. Although this plot is very common among aristocrats, they acted terribly towards his brother's mother. The young lady then turns to Mr. Knox. And then he claims that however he understands that their love was stronger than their common sense, and he thought about them for a long time, and then decided that he wanted to share this story with her. The young lady then says that she also thinks that they acted wrongly towards the mother of his younger brother, but they probably understood that it was impossible as a couple, but they just couldn't come to terms with it as a couple. So we decided, get married secretly here. The Marquis now asks if she is even going to discuss them, but the girl replies that she thinks there is no point in this because they committed this act at the behest of their hearts. And when the guy thinks that maybe he always dreamed of hearing the words that the love of his parents was strong and pure, so now he thanks Lunacia. And he says that he is glad that he brought her there.